Tuesday, October 22nd. This is the Charter Commission meeting. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, before we begin, can I just ask if anybody other than Shane is taping this meeting? Okay. And up first, we have public comment. Is anybody here from the public who would like to speak? Okay. All right, this evening we have 4 individuals and groups who are coming to visit with us and letting us pick their brains. We appreciate their time. We're going to start with the Lee Parker, the director of the Norton Public Library, and I believe she brought with her one of the trustees from the library.
The president of the board of trustees.
Okay, you're Brian Stalters?
Yep.
Hi, very nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Lee.
Hi. Yes, please do. If you want, actually, these 2 seats are available if you'd be more comfortable over here. Shane, is that microphone gonna pick them up? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening. We have Lee Parker, the director of Norton Public Library, and Brian Stalters, the chair of the Library Board of Trustees.
Right.
One of the things I just wanted to mention, if you've read through our charter, there's not a lot of mention of the library in general. Similar to the school board, libraries are regulated by state law. In this case, it's Mass General Law, Chapter 78, and there's a state agency involved with that as well, the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. And I'm hoping they can fill us in on a few other pieces as we go along. So we do very much appreciate your time. If you don't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit about your tenure in your position and whether or not you're residents of the town.
Okay. I've been at the library for 21 years. I know. I was the youth services librarian for much of it, and then I've been director almost 8 years. And I am not a resident of the town.
Okay.
Brian Stalters. I've been on the board, I think, 12 or 13 years, and I've been the president for the past 4.
Okay.
And I do live in Norton.
Okay. Now, I have a question, and you'll have to forgive me because I could not find any guidance even within the state regs. How is a director appointed?
The director is hired by the board of trustees,
Okay,
so they are the ones that do the search and the interviewing and the hiring.
okay,
And then I do all the other hiring for all the other staff.
okay, but you are considered a town employee?
We are all town employees.
Okay.
It's a town building. But we are also a 501c3. That's where we're very different.
Okay, so you're a not-for-profit?
We're both,
Oh,
because we're a town department too.
Okay.
So we get funding from the town
yep,
for salaries and for our network membership. We're a member of sales, which is our network, and for materials, and everything else we have to raise funds for.
got it.
It's very different.
All right. If you could give us a brief overview of what your roles are individually, and then also the working relationship between the director and the trustees.
Okay, so I'm the director, and I have 2 other employees and myself have masters in library science, 2 paraprofessional full-timers, and then I have 8 part-timers that work anywhere from 5 hours per pay period to 20 hours a week. It's very, very, very different in the library. And this is our FY19 in review, which will kind of give you an idea of what we do at the library. And the Board of Trustees is made up of 9 residents of Norton, the voters, and we meet monthly, September through June, and then as needed during the summer.
So
Thank you.
Lee sees the day-to-day operations of the library. She's the one who does all the hiring. She's HR. She's facilities person in emergencies.
Yeah, we don't have a
Um,
custodian either.
Right, we don't have a full-time custodian, so when there are 100 kids there and somebody makes a mess, they clean it up. When something breaks, they try to repair it. Other than that, we have to call somebody, but when you have a lot of kids and a lot of people in the library, you can't let something sit broken for more than a day or two, because it becomes a hazard. So we have to do stuff right away. We're in charge of the library. Let me explain who I am. So Brian Stalters, I'm the president of the board of directors. The board of directors oversees the library itself, the building, and Lee takes care of all of the employees, but she comes to us for guidance and support. So Lee makes a lot of day-to-day decisions, but we make the overall business decisions of the library.
And they approve the policies. I come to them with recommendations, and then they discuss it, and they vote on policies. And
Mhm. Yep. So the board is in charge of the building, too. It's a town building, but there are no funds that come from the town directly for that unless we make a specific request. We had a building fund that was part of a donation from the Balfour, and we've used that money up in the past 30 years. And that had to do with ADA accessibility, repairs. You know, a building that's 30 years old needs work. The town did fund a new roof for us, because that was quite expensive. That was close to $80,000 for a roof. And they did give us $400,000 for a new heating and air conditioning system that we needed to put in. We don't have that kind of money.
we did borrow some, and we did,
We had to borrow $100,000 out of our endowment, which really, the endowment is for books and for the better interest of the library, not fixing up the building.
and it's supposed to be for in perpetuity.
Right, so we can't use, we can't use
Principal.
the money. We try to manage it best we can. But again, the building's 30 years old, so we see a lot of problems. We try to fix things on ourselves. Because it's a town building, one of the issues that I have myself, and this just goes beyond Norton, is we have to pay prevailing wages to get the building fixed. So the $450,000 HVAC job, if I were to do that at my office, it would be $200,000. But you have to go according to the list that the Massachusetts state law has, and it says you have to pay these people this amount of money. We had people quote it and look at it and said, I'm not quoting it because it costs me too much money in paperwork, because the state is going to audit me to make sure that I paid the $50.02 to my guy who normally makes $18 an hour. Prevailing wages. So it becomes quite expensive to do a lot of things. Plumbing, HVAC, doors. When you have, how many people come in a month? 7,000?
Last year, we had 70,793 visitors to the library. We have a people counter, because we have to keep these statistics for this state. In order to get our certification, we have to do statistics like this, so. Which,
lot of-
that's for 40 hours a week that we're open. We're now open 45 as of September. We were open. We got additional funding last spring to be open 45 hours per week. The goal is to be open 50 hours a week, which is what a town of this population should be open. And we were up until 2008, when we had the big cut. We lost 40% of our funding, and we got decertified, and so we've been making some big strides. And you can see by this sheet that I gave you, for instance, last year, the attendance, we had 8,145 people attend programs. That was a 38% increase over the year before. Those are programs from babies all the way up to seniors. We have fitness classes, we have technology programs, we have lectures, we have, well, that's not a program, no, that we have, yeah, so for the library programs, it's things that we are offering to lifelong enrichment for the people. And we had 51% more programs offered last year than the year before. And this year, I envision it will go even more than the 368, because we're open more hours. Next year, though, we are also going to be an early voting site, so that means 3 weeks that we won't be able to have programs. So, but we are a community center, that's part of our function, so it's a good thing for the town, so. We had 97,838 items borrowed last year, which was a 26% increase over the year before. We have 10,745 active borrowers, and you have to be 5 to get a library card, so it doesn't include all the thousands of little ones that are in the library. 2,169 volunteer hours, which is huge. And the meeting rooms we used 1,121 times, which is a 20% increase of the year before. And it's used for things like, we have blood drive several times a year. Different department heads use it. It could be any kind of program that's in there. So it's a really busy community center. And we did get $39,245 in donations, grants, and state aid last year, which was a 15% increase. Next year, with the increase in open hours, we will be getting hopefully a 12.5% increase in state aid. I don't know about the donations, because you don't know what's going to happen with that, but we'll apply for grants again, too.
Yeah. So the town supplies money for salaries and benefits. That's it.
Nope, and
And
membership.
Membership for sales.
Yeah, which is really important.
So in our budget lines,
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that again? Membership?
Sales is our network, so we're part of a network so that people can borrow from,
other libraries and things like
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah. So any deficit in that money that we request that the town doesn't give us, we have to make up on our own. The endowment that we have is forbidden to give money for salaries. You can't use that money for salaries. It's for other things, specifically things for the library. But it wasn't envisioned to use that money to fix the bathrooms or put new rugs in or things like that. The town does help us. The highway department is great with snow plowing and fixing some things outside. We had somebody trip on the sidewalk because there was a concrete lip. They came in, they did it according to ADA rules, and they fixed it for us, and they were pretty timely at it. So we're very thankful for a lot of the departments help us. But again, you saw these numbers. That's a lot of times, there's a lot of traffic in the library. The meeting room, it's the only one that's right around this center right here that can hold over 100 people. And it's modern. It has nice LED lighting in it. It's comfortable to sit in. It has a projector, so we can do shows and training and things like that. So a lot of the town departments use it.
we got the projector and the laptop and a lot of stuff from cable grants. The Norton Media Center gives cable grants. I think we were one of the first recipients from that. Yeah.
Yeah, Lee's very good at writing grants for as much money as we can get.
And the
from
LED
anybody.
lighting we paid for out of a supplemental budget too, so.
Yeah, like last year, we did a full LED replacement. for
Inside and
Inside
outside.
and outside, the parking lot, the park, inside and everything. And that was part of the Mass Save program. So 80% of it was paid by Mass Save, but we have to raise money to pay for that extra percent, which came out to about $40,000.
Has anybody ever used our park? Because the park, we have programs in the park all the time. And we have the gazebo, which was donated by Northeastern Savings Bank. We have power out there, we have lights. We do concerts in the park, we do different programs, so we're responsible for that too, so.
Yeah, Friends of the Library raised a lot of money for us.
I think last year they gave us $11,000. Those bake sales, book sales, raffles, so.
Right. And some of that is not for the building, but for the library passes that you can get.
Oh, museum passes, yeah.
Right, museum passes and things like that. We have to pay for those in order for people to use them for free.
How are members of your board elected?
I was elected by, somebody knew me from president, that was at the library, and knew that I was, I could fix things, right, Dave? Handy. And the building was in some need of repair, so they asked me to come and visit and sit in a meeting, and within a week, I was part of the board, so it was elected.
Okay.
We find people that, when someone leaves, we like somebody who's taken an interest in the library, a friend of the library, or someone that's common to the library.
Okay.
We have a person on the board who worked at the Attleboro Library System for a number of years. Herb Ellison, who was our past president, was on the board for 50 years. It was a Wheaton College professor, and he was on the board from the 1960s on, and he's still there.
How long are your terms?
They don't have terms.
Okay,
Well, they do, I mean, they do.
We get elected every
We
3
have
years.
annual meetings every fall.
okay,
Which is in the bylaws, they have their own bylaws, and at the annual meeting, they vote in the members. And if there's anybody who's interested, they can, not be nominated there on the floor. But you know what it's like when you have people who want to get involved in something, you want something done, you ask a busy person, and it's hard to get people who are willing to, it's work, especially like the president and the treasurer. Oh my God, there's a lot of work involved in those volunteer positions, which, that's not included when I say these volunteer hours.
okay.
So I'm grateful that we have 9 citizens that are willing to serve on the board. That's a pretty big board.
It is,
Yeah,
okay.
well-
We have a lot of checks and balances that way. We also get audited every year by an independent auditor,
That's
which
another
we
thing
pay for that. That's
We
like
have to pay for that, it's
$9,000.
$9,000 a year to get audited, and make sure that everything is up and up. And we're very fortunate to have Bob Berg, who used to be the former president of Northeastern Savings. He is our treasurer.
Yeah, thank God.
Excellent financier, knows what he's doing. And we also have the endowment has a trustee board. So there are other people who are not on our board who are the liaisons between the board and us.
And the Friends have a board too, so, because they do a lot of fundraising for us too.
Okay. So in the event you have a vacancy on the board, the other board members, it's basically
We
just a
do
vote
a
amongst?
search and find, and
Okay.
They ask people to.
Does the Mass Board of Library Commissioners get involved at all? Did they initially place you? I know it's been around for forever, but how were the initial members selected?
I don't know, that was over 50 years ago.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you how they were.
Actually, the
Originally done.
library's from 1800, so it's older than that.
Yeah.
I think I'm only like the 9th library director too, so.
Wow.
Yeah, if you're familiar, the old library is the one that's on the corner, across from the gazebo in the center.
Yep.
That brick building. The original, well, that was one of the original libraries.
Yeah. So the Mass Board of Library Commissioners gives you, they give you trustee guidelines and handouts when they first join. We give them, when someone is interested, they might sit in on a meeting, and we give them minutes from, the past X number of meetings. We give them the Constitution, just history on the library, and then are available to answer any questions. And we like to have a wide variety of people on the board, so we do have, pretty much half and half men and women, different age groups, and varied backgrounds. So it makes for a really very helpful board, when you have people who have banking backgrounds or business backgrounds or construction backgrounds or education, because we do so much in that library, So it's nice to have a variety.
Okay. So you're fairly self-sustaining.
It definitely is, yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the level of guidance and/or support from the town that you receive?
It's very different because unlike most town departments or most other libraries, we are a town department, but we're also a 501c3. So everyone else, they deal directly with the town, like the town funds everything, and if they have an issue, they just call, can you come fix this? I was at a library meeting at a different library the other day, and they said, oh, I'm having a septic problem, and they just have to call somebody, whereas we have to scramble, And we do our own payroll. So we have human resources, like I have to do that stuff too. It's just very, very different. It's not like other departments, and it's not like most libraries. So,
Not like most libraries?
no, most libraries they're fully funded by the town.
Okay.
So we have extra work on our job description, because it's all the stuff that you have to do as a department head to run the library, which you could see there's, a huge amount of stuff that we do. We do our own website. We're responsible for that. We don't have an IT department, it's us. We do our own graphics design, it's us, So it's very different. It's very, very different. In some ways, we're like a school in the sense that we get the money, and then the board can say, okay, this is where it goes, but we give them the finance committee, the breakdown of every single thing that's the money is going to. And, you know, we have, it's just extra responsibilities.
There's a lot of responsibility put on Lee,
Well,
on a
on the
day-to-day that we see, you know, as a board, that we say, we wish we could do more, an HR department, someone that she could rely on to help with the hiring or sometimes termination, that can be difficult to do. But again, they're town employees, so they have to abide by the town rules, town laws. The building 30 years ago was given to the library. It's a town building, it's town land. I think we pay like $1 a year for a lease. But in the original contract, it was, okay, here's the library, here's all the brick and mortar, you're done. Now you guys are responsible to maintain the library. And it's a big place, and over 30 years, it's now 30 years old, things break. So again, that's where we're seeing a lot of spending, a lot of money, a lot of time is being spent diagnosing, talking about, and trying to fund those projects.
For those of you who don't know, the library, when they originally built it, they built this particular spot for the location, and they also built its 2 floors. Most people don't know that. They built it with the intention that when the population reached a certain size, or the collection reached a certain size, they would expand to the 2nd floor. That was probably 15 years ago. It hasn't happened. I don't see it happening in the near future.
The cost is just, we wouldn't have the money to do that.
Yeah. You need to have a different, we don't have an elevator. We'd have, where in the plans, there was an elevator shaft, which is where the Friends have their book sale room. So you need to be able to put that in there. You need to make the whole entire floor. It's just one big empty space with one tiny window in the HVAC system. So it would be a massive, massive undertaking.
Yeah.
So,
Even a recent change with the restrooms, having a family restroom or non-gender identity restroom. We had to take one bathroom that has one stall in it and created a family bathroom because we have a girls' and a boys' bathroom. That if we wanted to make those equal, the cost would just be astronomical. And, you know, we don't have money for that.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick
Sorry,
question?
yeah, Janie had one, I think, first, sorry.
Well, so just backtracking a little, I had a question. You mentioned that most towns' libraries are funded by their towns?
yeah, they're fully funded by the town.
So how is it that Norton came to not be, and has it always been like that, as far as
I
you've
think
been
it's
here?
always been
I
that
think
way.
we've always
yeah.
been that way, yeah.
You just don't know how that...
It's been past my before
There
my
are,
time.
there are a few towns that, I mean, Easton is like that too. They have the Ames Foundation and they have deeper pockets. So there are a number of incorporated libraries in the state. It's not a huge number. It's just,
The Balfours, the ring company, the Balfours, they gave us the money originally for the brick and mortar for the building and then to support it a little bit, and that's where some of the endowment money's from. A year and a half ago, when we had that HVAC project come up, we realized how expensive it was gonna be. We put in a request with the Balfours again, and they said no.
well, we put in a grant application.
Yeah,
So
they're-
we can always apply again, but.
Right, they're more for education and things like that, not necessarily fixing the building. So,
We were hopeful because it's called the Algie and Mildred Balfour Memorial, if you see it on the outside of the library. But,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, so we rely on donations, and if we have something big, we have to go to town manager and say, can you help us out? But it's a guessing, we're at a board meeting and going, I hope they give us the money.
yeah.
You know, and some, like the HVAC project, we spent $100,000 in 7 years Band-Aiding the system, because you have to keep it up. You know, you got a summer day, and you have 5 people in the library. The next day, it's the same 85 degrees, but there's 100 people in the library. You gotta manage, and people complain, it's too hot, it's too cold. We fixed it, and finally we said we need a new system, updated, state-of-the-art. But again, $400,000.
And people don't understand, you know, we are responsible to pay for like everything from toilet paper
Utilities.
I mean, it's a public restroom, so people come in to use the restroom because it's a safe place, people come use the restrooms. Everything, that all comes out of our budget, you know,
We pay the
stamps,
utilities.
heat, lights.
You're saying "we" in those sentences.
It's the library itself.
So
The
we have,
library-
we have two budgets. We have the town budget and we have the supplemental budget, which comes out of, see what here I said, the donations, state aid and grants, and then we also have the drawdown from the endowment, which is, we drew down $65,000 this year. And that helps pay for anything that is not salaries or that's sales membership. It even pays for a lot of materials, but we did just get $30,000 last night at town meeting, which we were very grateful for, because the town used to pay for all the materials, and this will get us closer to that, so that's huge.
From
Very
2008
appreciative.
until this year, we had to raise the money to pay for the materials that is required by the Massachusetts Library Commission in order for us to get our state aid. And we had to raise that money ourselves. It's $50,000 a year. But before 2008, that was part of what the town was giving us for salaries and the other stuff.
Are you comfortable with that relationship with the town, or do you want to see more with the town, or do you like the autonomy of having the separation?
I like the autonomy of finding well-deserved contractors. You know, the lowest, it's not necessarily the lowest bidder, it's the lowest competent bidder. Finding for projects like that, I'd like to say, here, we found the 3 lowest bidders, let's do a sealed bid, but have the town help us out a little more. When we discuss our budget, Lee will get something from the town manager and say, all right, I need a budget for next year, level funding, 3% COLA. We put the numbers together and we put steps in there and things like that. And it's a guessing game until that day that we don't know how much money we're gonna get. I'm surprised that the town right now doesn't have like a financial plan more than a year for how much money they're gonna give each department. I see it with the fire department and the police too. They come up and they ask for money, and then the finance committee only has a certain amount of money they can dish out every year. But it would be nice to have a plan that we can give raises, we can do this stuff. Sometimes we say we want to give a raise, we don't have the money for it because the town doesn't have to give.
David, do you have a question?
I did, but I think I got it answered. I was getting confused about where the money came from, I guess.
Which money?
The supplemental budget.
The supplemental.
Yeah. Which we give the finance committee every time we meet with them too. So we get the budget sheets from James, and he'll say, fill these out, break down everything. And then I provide it to them, and then we also give them the supplemental budget. So they can see, how much we're getting for income, which you never know how much you're gonna get in donations, how much you're gonna get in grants, how much you're even gonna get in state aid. I mean, supposedly, you think it's gonna be around a certain figure, but you never know, it's state aid, it's like the cherry sheets. So,
Yeah. A large part of the supplemental comes from the endowment. There's a formula that the bank has, which is state regulated, which says how much money we have to take out a year based on the size of the endowment. Because they don't want it to just keep growing and not use any of it. You have to draw down a certain amount of money every year. And again, we had to take an extra $100,000 out on top of the 60 we normally take to pay for building repairs. And now you've lost the interest over the years of that extra $100,000.
So if you had a leak in the building tonight, say, and you found out you need a new roof, where would that money come from? Well, how would that work?
We would, if it was an emergency,
Yeah.
we would have to find some money somewhere. We would have to take it out of the endowment. I mean,
we've had many
Don't
leaks.
want to.
Let me tell you what we've done in the past. We've had many leaks. So we've had, so it would be staff that we cover things with tarps, and we start calling around and getting emergency people to come in, and we put the books in the freezer, and we have someone come out that can kind of salvage the books. We digitize stuff that we can't salvage. We've had to deal with this many times, which is why one of the reasons we got the new roof, because we had leaks, because of all the peaks and valleys. It's a beautiful building, but with all the peaks and valleys, there's a lot of ice damming that happens. And then with the HVAC system, there were rotting things in the drains and things, so that was leaking stuff. So, yeah, so.
we lost some valuable records. Some were able to freeze dry and copy, scan, but some of the documents were completely lost. And part of, a lot of that was the HVAC. It's on the second floor. You build up condensation in the drain pipes, and they're all cast iron, they leak, and they leak between the walls in the archive
They
room.
do.
And they start from the floor up and they saturate things.
We had to repair that room so many times in the last 10, years.
Yep.
But I guess I was getting at, it's like, but your first, like, I guess like most town departments, if something happened, they would probably reach out to the town manager and say, hey, I got a problem.
Yeah, we don't go to the
You-
town
you gotta-
manager right away.
right,
No,
right.
we figure out where we're gonna get it from. We call, like a J. Bryan Day Emergency Service Company to come in and try to restore things the best they can, and then find out what the problem is and get some repair costs.
And we had a building fund that was still being held by the town, managed by the town, that we would submit the bills to James. We'd have the quotes and do all that stuff. There's no money left in it. We used it all up. So now it'd just be, if we cannot absorb the costs in the supplemental budget, then we would go and say, can we get something from capital or something? Which we have done that. There have been, like you said, the roof and the HVAC and carpeting.
Yeah, and we have, like, we had to become ADA compliant with a lot of things. We didn't even have a handicap accessible doors in the front for the longest time. Finally, we had to get it done, but, that's $7,000-8,000 just for a set of doors for a public building. The front desk, you couldn't get a wheelchair up to the front desk. So we had a local contractor fix it for us, and he did it for cost. So these are a lot of things that we don't try to ask for, as much as we can, but if we have to ask, we ask, and a lot of people help out.
If there's a townwide building committee, I would love the library to be part of that.
There would, I think there
Because
was
it is a town building. And even though we're responsible for like the upkeep, and we do it. Like if somebody's coming in and they're using the place, we make sure that, everything's okay, but it would be great if we were part of the townwide building committee, if they consider the library too. Because it is a community resource in the town building, so.
So I understand that you were talking about like prevailing wage, like for instance, because of the roof, the town supplemented the $400,000, says go prevailing wage. If you were gonna say the small things that you've had to fix over the years and whatnot, are you able to do that with, you still have to go through, even though it's not being paid for by the town?
If somebody
I think we do.
volunteers time, no, that's volunteer, they're not getting
Yeah.
paid. But like the doors, hey, this is a town building, this is what we have to do, the plumber.
Yeah.
$95 an hour to come in and,
And there's no exemption for being a 501c3?
no, it's a town building. It's not, it's a town-owned public building. Same thing here, for any of these, the schools.
Yeah.
Same thing with the schools.
I just didn't understand that because of where the money's coming from, you know what I mean? Because if
Yeah.
you're borrowing and having an endowment, that's what
Yeah.
that's.
Doesn't matter where the
confusion I
money's
had.
coming from, it's.
I can understand if the town's gonna pay $400,000 for the roof, they're gonna use a contractor that falls under that because the town's paying for it. But when you're calling J. Bryan Day or whatever, and you're using endowment money for an emergency,
We've been told we have to follow the same rules. We have to get quotes, all that stuff.
Any work that's done on the building, it's prevailing wages. You lose a lot of good contractors that way because I think one of the contractors for the school, I think years ago, didn't pay one or two of his guys the right wage and he got fined. So they have auditors. That minimum is $50 an hour, I think, for some of these contractors. Normally, they're $20 an hour, but they're $50 for prevailing wages, so they pay them $51 an hour to make sure they're over that threshold.
are you able to buy, say, the supplies if the person is willing to donate their time without having to do?
Yes, we've done that.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, we go out and buy the supplies and then bring them in. I do work in the library. One of the other board members' husband's retired. He's handy. He comes in and he patches walls that get dinged up, or when the HVAC project went in, we had thermostats all over the place that didn't exist, that didn't need anymore. He took them all down, patched them up, but it was all volunteer hours.
I think we've covered the question of, do you have access to everything that you need? Are there any trends or changes in regulations that you see potentially impacting the board or the library or its function going forward?
Well, one of the trends is that a lot of libraries across the country are going fine-free. That's the trend, they're reducing or eliminating fines, and we've done some of that in the past. We added a media drop, which our fines dropped enormously because people could put video games and DVDs in there, but it increased access. We added automatic renewals, so that if somebody has something checked out and they forget to renew it, if there's nobody on hold for it, it will automatically renew, so again, they won't incur fines. And we've eliminated tutor fees, certain things that we had, so our income is significantly down, but we're not in the business to be making money. I think we're in the business to be helping the public, so, but we're kind of walking a tightrope, because on the one hand, I want that access. I want to be able to get this to everyone. On the other hand, we rely on income to actually literally keep the lights on. So it's a very challenging.
Yeah, small example, we have a fax machine, and it's in the back of the office. People come in and say, I need this fax. So we charge, I don't know, a couple of dollars.
$2.
$2 a page, right, to do this. But someone from the library has to stop what they're doing and fax this stuff. Now, some of it can be medical, personal, financial,
Well, go
whatever.
spaced down, so.
Right, so then try, but here you are, you have some really important paperwork that's extremely personal, and you're handing it off to a stranger to fax for you in a back room. So you have no idea, I mean, your trust level is there because of the library, but still. Lee had proposed this company come in that does a fax, and we won't make any money on it. But our ROI is, they don't have to do this anymore, they don't have to stop what they're doing. But it's something that took a 30-minute discussion of, because we were losing those dollars.
It was maybe $800 a year. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're paying for toilet paper and stuff, it adds up.
Yeah.
But I also proposed that it would be great for the people to come in, and they have their own autonomy, and they have their own sense of privacy, like, but they might still need help, and we still haven't installed it yet, it's still a work in progress, but that's the goal. We have self-service holds, but not self-service checkout, so this will mostly be self-service faxing and scanning, and it will serve a need, and our income will go down, but I think it will be good for the people,
Right.
and that's what we're there for.
But like you said, $800 doesn't sound like a lot for a year, but it adds up,
Yeah. Could be toilet paper.
right?
We put in hand dryers in the restrooms to save on paper towels, because we were spending thousands of dollars on paper towels. So, all those things you wouldn't have to think of, when I got my master's in library science, we didn't have facilities management in there. We didn't have, grounds maintenance.
You can go to HVAC for library.
Yep.
Oh, there were many times that she'd call, I'm local, I work locally, can you come by? And finally we fixed it. Even the LEDs, I expected to see a 50 to 60% decrease in our utility bill. We saw a 50 to 60% reduction in our kilowatt hours, but our bill hasn't gone down because the electric costs have gone up.
Plus, we're paying for them, so in 3 years, when the lights are paid for, we'll go down.
We'll see a little bit of funding, yeah.
Okay. As it relates to our town government and how it operates, are there any things that you think, one of the things Lee had actually already mentioned was the townwide building committee.
I would love.
Are there other things that you think we should start doing, stop doing, or continue to do?
I'd say keep us a little more informed with the financial, what you're going to give us every year. Even if it's a meeting every couple of months to say, yeah, we're on track, or we're not. Like I said, when we do the FinCom meeting every year, it's we have no idea what we're going to get. And it would be nice to plan raises or plan steps for employees. We talked to FinCom, the minimum wage is going up to $15 an hour in what, a year?
I think.
And some of these people are making $12 an hour now. So that's a big increase. And that's not something that you can say, no, we're not going to do that. So it'd be nice to be a little more informed as we go. Lee meets with Mike, and then we sit here with FinCom, and a lot of it's proposed, but again, we don't know what the overall picture of FinCom looks like. I don't think anybody does, except for FinCom, and every department
I don't
comes
even
up.
read them either.
Yeah,
But we are understaffed compared to other towns. We are underfunded compared to other towns. I mean, they have budgets that are 2 and 3 times the size of our library budget. Our budget is 452, so now it's going to be 482. And other libraries, for towns that are half the size of us, they're much, much larger, like double ours.
Does that mean the town budget? The town side of the
Yeah, the
budget
town
is
budget
what you're talking
salaries.
about?
Yeah.
Well, their entire budget, though,
Right.
you know.
So I'm just trying to compare the two. If they're fully funded by it,
And their budget is that much higher. Like we have the supplemental budget, but our supplemental budget does not pay as much as the town side. Because I want to say it's like 140,000, the supplemental budget maybe,
yeah. it's not
which
even-
is significant amount of money, because we get 65,000 from the endowment, and then maybe 20,000 from the state aid. Everything else is.
Everything else is fines or
Yeah.
donations, which, like you said, it's up in the air. You don't,
And grants. Yeah.
year to year, you don't know what you're gonna get.
do you ask for the town, do you ask for the same amount every year? Or I know it can't be that way in terms of emergencies. Like, you don't know what you're gonna need. But even on a year where you don't have an emergency,
We don't ask for much,
Well.
So you don't always-
So I'll be told to ask for a level service budget, level funded budget, or sometimes I've been told to do budgets for, like, we were open 50 hours a week, and then we went down to 26 hours, then 30 hours a week, then 40, and then I've been told to do 40-hour budgets, 45-hour budgets, 50-hour budgets. Do all 3 budgets. And then it will come closer to the finance committee, and they'll say, only present this part to the finance committee. So now we're at 45, so I'm assuming the next round, they may say do a 45-hour budget, level service, or they may say do 45 and 50. That's our goal. Our goal is to be back to where we should be. So,
in 2008, we were open 50 hours a week, and our budget was 450,000?
yeah, so we're where we were in 2008.
11 years ago.
And,
Now we're
and,
open 45 hours a week, and
Yeah.
our budget's $450,000.
and everything costs more, salaries, books. So,
Yeah. And my fear is losing people like Lee, because we can't pay them enough compared to other towns. If you look at, they're all public knowledge. All the head librarian, Mansfield is over $100,000 a year for a head librarian.
Article 16, which was the one you all took no action on, which was
Yes.
Can I? So I'm trying to understand what makes, so the library's somewhat like, I guess, like the school department. You're kind of semi-autonomous. You're kind of, here's your bucket of money, do what you want to do with it. Which has its advantages, obviously, and disadvantages. But is that different than other towns? So in other words, like you talk about Mansfield and a lot more funding, but does Mansfield have more control over the library in the sense of maybe they appoint the board and, that kind of thing? Or is it, or are they still semi-autonomous like?
don't know
I
how
think the board
works.
still may hire the director. I don't think the town is involved in that, but I could be wrong. But as far as most of the running, the operations of it, if anything goes wrong, they just call the town manager, or they call the, DPW, or the IT department, or, they're, it's just,
Yeah, so I guess I was trying to figure out, like, does the board of, like, for example, does the board of selectmen have more control over the selectmen and the board? So, there's more of a tie-in with the town side, that's what I was kind of,
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
so.
I'm trying to figure out what
We
we're
have, we have someone who used to be a library director. Was your town was not an incorporated library, right?
No, Plymouth was the same as Norton with the self-perpetuating board. I was library director in Mansfield for 11 years, and the board of trustees is elected in that community.
No, as far as the funding though. If-
Funding?
Did most everything come from the town?
Yes, we were 100% municipally funded. Our 501c3 corporation simply did fundraising for us and provided the things the town couldn't. So just
Not-
programming,
yeah.
museum passion.
But
we
not
were-
like paying for the heat or the lights or,
No, we were 100%
mowing.
municipally funded.
so it's very different. Thank you.
We had, when the other projects came into the library, the fire department came in to do their inspection or something like that, and they were like, you know, you need this, you need that, you need that. Okay, well, that came out of our budget,
Yeah, we-
because we had to update to get to code again. New fire alarm, new burglar alarm, video cameras, things like that.
Well, got a grant from that,
Us.
the cable grant for one, and so hopefully that will be good for a few more years anyway. We have new systems.
Yeah, it just interests me. I was flipping through our charter, and unless I missed it, I don't think it's even mentioned in there.
Yeah, I looked too.
It's not. No.
Yeah, which,
Do you know why that is?
no, I have no idea.
Because they worked on the last charter, I think it was 10 years ago, in the library, so it's kind of ironic.
But I think it probably has something to do, I'm assuming, that it's, because you are kind of semi-autonomous
Yeah,
from the
you're
town.
you're regulated
But is
more by the
school- Is
state.
the school mentioned?
Not really.
The
Very-
school,
very
well, the school
briefly.
committee.
Minimally.
It is minimally, but
Yeah.
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 Usually when it's mentioned, the schools and the library are mentioned in a manner of, you know, the town manager will have control over the running of all buildings, with the exception of the
Oh,
library
yeah,
and the
okay.
school, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Was there anything that we didn't ask you about that you'd like to bring up with us?
I think so.
No, you can kind of sense how frustrated we are sometimes about the
Well-
building.
Yes.
And again, about not knowing how much money we can give out for salaries, you know,
And-
year to year.
I hope if you have any questions about this or anything that we do at the library, feel free to contact me. That's what we're there for.
Absolutely, we
And,
appreciate it.
Thank you very
And
much.
hopefully you can meet again at the library, because it's a great space, right?
November 18th, we will see you there.
All right, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have the Permanent Building Committee.
That's very interesting.
Hi, Dinah, how are you?
I'm doing very well, and you?
I'm well, thank you. Is
You have me.
just you? Okay, got it. That's all we need. Dinah O'Brien is the chair of the Permanent Building Committee. They are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and they have 5 members. I believe they are fully staffed presently.
Yes, we are, the members are jointly appointed by the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is a joint appointment.
Okay.
We currently have 5 members, myself, Jim Slattery, Robert Medeiros, Kevin O'Neill, and Mark Gresham. And then we have 2 associates for the current projects we're working on, Robert Brosco for the Council on Aging and Jack Conway representing the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a interesting committee in the fact that it's not, up until probably a couple of years ago, I don't believe it was actually not in force, it wasn't,
Active.
yes, thank you, that's the word I want. And it's called upon when there's a specific project or a specific need by the town?
Yes, we are charged with, under the bylaws, with managing the construction and maintenance of all town buildings. That includes the school department projects and library projects, if they have one that's coming up. And we only come into action when those needs arise. So we have been quite busy for the past several years, starting with the school window project that we were working very closely with the school department on, and now with the needs and assessments for a new town hall and council on aging facility. The other project that the committee is working on is a townwide assessment of municipal buildings, and we will have an envelope study completed within the next 15 months with an assessment of where the buildings are, their current condition, and what we can anticipate into the future, which we will then report to capital outlay on that. So at this time, that's what's on the agenda for the building committee. unless another town department comes up with a project.
Quite the itinerary you have.
Can I just interrupt real quickly? Does that include the library in that envelope study?
Yes, it does.
It does, okay.
It does. All municipal buildings, including the
Yeah,
schools.
I only asked because,
Yeah. No, I know. I'm calling Lee.
thank you.
Make sure we get them on the agenda.
Given the number of projects that you've got on your plate right now, what are your thoughts on the number of members within your committee? Do you feel they're sufficient? Would you prefer more?
I think they are sufficient. 5 for the permanent building committee is fine. And the bylaws do allow for an alternate to be appointed, or an adjunct, whatever term you're in favor of, for a particular project. So if, I don't know, the fire department was going to do something, they would be entitled to have a member sitting, representing their interests on the committee. So I think the core 5 and then the supplemental appointments are perfect for that committee.
The supplemental, do they have voting rights?
Only on their projects.
Okay. But you're fine with the 5 permanent?
Yes.
Permanent building committee members?
Mhm.
And explain to me, you're the only board that has a joint appointment between the town and the school. Is there a rationale for that?
The rationale, no one has ever advised me of it, but I have made an assumption
Okay.
that because we cover all municipal buildings, school and town side, that both of the 2 major committees in town, the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee, have rights to appoint and interview candidates for this committee, since we will be overseeing all of it.
Is there a select number that each get, or is it just a mutual understanding that when there's a member that needs to be voted in, they kind of get together and vote on it?
They do it in an open session of a joint meeting.
Okay, so it's just the 5 are appointed equally by, they don't have like 3 members from the school committee and 2 from the board?
No, it's full Board of Selectmen, full school committee, answering questions and getting appointment. We are appointed for 3 years on rotating terms.
Has there ever been a year that there's more people running? Is there actually a decision, or is it usually just?
To be honest with you, since before the Town Hall Council on Aging came into, we were a committee that, really didn't draw too much attention. Now, of course, here we are. So it's a committee that's getting quite a lot of attention, but no, there are not people beating down the doors.
And you have no support staff?
No.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the level of support that you receive from the town?
I think the support that we receive from the town is excellent, I'll be honest with you. With the limited amount of staffing that's available at the town hall, we have had no issue getting a response from the town manager, the building inspector, the planning director, chairman of the board of selectmen, superintendent of schools. Everyone is very forthcoming and willing to work out, so we have no issues with
Okay.
lack of support.
Who mandates your projects? It comes directly from, I'm assuming, from the Board of Selectmen to the town manager to you?
Yes, it's generated by the Board of Selectmen as the governing body and the school department as the governing body. And in the
Okay.
case of the library, it would be the library trustees who would come and say, we have a project, we want to do this. Building committee, would you help us? I mean, we would do everything except for the funding.
Okay.
Which, would be analyzing the project, issuing the RFQs, selecting the vendors to be used, going straight through the architectural studies and engineering. If it does go to construction, we would do the bidding for the architect for the general contractor, all the subs. We would hire the clerk of the works. We would manage the project through fruition, and then we would gladly turn over the keys to the owning authority.
Do you have access to everything you need, whether that be information, technology, people, in order to function properly?
Yes, we do.
Have you worked or come across any other towns where your committee or function is structured differently that you may want to consider?
I personally have not. I've been on building committees for the town of Mansfield and for the town of Plymouth, and they all seem to operate within the same structure. You know, some of it is tweaked according to local preference, but when you look at the overall structure of a building committee, they're all pretty much the same.
Question, is it typical to be appointed jointly by the Board of Selectmen and School Committee and these other towns? Is that kind of?
I'm trying to think. I know the town of Plymouth was just a selectman's appointment. I believe Mansfield had a joint consideration, but don't hold me to that, because that was 35 years ago. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just intrigued by that concept of the joint.
Well, you're working with two boards that have jurisdiction over two different sets of buildings within the town.
No, I get that totally. What I like about it is the, rather than like the school committee appointing two and the Board of Selectmen appointing two, or, something like that. It's
No,
more
they-
Joint decisions, like,
It's a good joint collaboration. I think
Yeah.
it's a basic collaboration within the town of the two major boards.
yes, I mean, I like that. I like that concept for, for other things I'm thinking about, but the,
I guess it becomes a moot point if no one's actually competing for the seats.
well, that's true.
Yeah, true.
Well, that is true, but nonetheless, you're not appointed as a school committee person, which I'm big advocate of that.
Yeah.
The questions they ask you, it's very interesting to sit before full board of selectmen and a full school committee who are asking very pointed questions. And I know when I went for my interview, I had no doubt in my mind that if they weren't satisfied, they would have said, "Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in," and that would have been it.
Are there
They were
specific,
grueling.
are there specific qualifications that, are there any,
She's ready for something.
Oh, yes, of course I am. I'm a librarian. Yes, the Permanent Building Committee consists of 5 voting members, and to the extent possible, this is according to the bylaws, we need to have 1 registered architect, 1 licensed engineer, 1 licensed builder, and 1 attorney.
who's the attorney?
Currently, we do not have an attorney. We
Okay.
do have a licensed builder, we have an engineer, we do not have a registered architect. However, we are blessed to have the chairman of the high school building project, Kevin O'Neill, is a member of our, he's currently on the planning board, but back in the day, he did the new high school project with his experience in there. And I have a lot of experience in municipal buildings.
As it relates to how the town government operates, are there things that you think we should start doing, stop doing, or continue doing?
From the perspective of the building committee, no. It is our job to take direction and then make sure that we have the information that's required for a town meeting vote or a presentation, and to give our honest opinion. Sometimes it might not be popular, but we give our honest opinion, because we are extremely conscious that we are entrusted to spend an incredible amount of taxpayer money, and we take it very seriously. So,
Any other questions for Dinah? Dinah, was there anything we didn't ask you about that you'd like to bring up or mention to us?
no, I think you covered it. It's, I will tout the committee. It's a very good committee. You've got a bunch of dedicated people who do care about the town. We have members with a lot of history in the town, and I think you're very fortunate.
I would agree. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have folks from the Recreation Commission. Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Just two of you?
Three.
Three?
Come on
Would you
up.
like to join us?
I get my own microphone?
You
Come
do.
on up.
You're that special.
I don't know if you want that.
Hi there. Thank you for being patient, waiting through the other meetings as well. If you don't mind, if you could just introduce yourselves and maybe just give us a idea of your tenure on the Recreation Committee.
Okay.
I'm Heather Cregan, and I've been on the Recreation Committee since last December.
Audrey Moschella. I've been on the Recreation Committee for less than a year.
Okay.
I am the chairwoman, and I've been appointed for about 5 months, so very fresh.
Mark Sweeney. Been on the board, I don't know how many months, recent, but have been active with the committee since Founder's Day, since 2012.
Okay. And just for my own edification, because I know it just recently changed, how many full-time and alternate members do you have now, or are you allotted?
So we have 7 board members.
Yep.
And 6 now alternates. It was 3. We were granted 3 more.
Okay. Do your alternates have voting rights?
No, not.
Do they?
Voting member is not present. They may fill in.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Why don't we start with just a brief explanation of the responsibility of the committee?
Our main responsibility is to help organize and create the events that happen throughout the year. Founder's Day, the Halloween Parade, Festival of Lights, the Egg Hunt, and also try to supplement any other events that we can throughout the year. We're really more of a support system for Sharon. She really takes the lead.
Okay. And how often do you folks meet?
When it becomes a committee for the actual events that are happening, we meet about every other week. When the event's coming more to fruition, it's once a week, maybe twice a week. Just the board itself, we are now meeting quarterly.
And you are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and do you have any thoughts on how that is done? Are you happy with Board of Selectmen appointments?
No complaints.
Okay. Talked about voting. Talked about staff. One of the things that we've been seeing a little bit of in other charters is the board is responsible for appointing their staff head, as opposed to them being hired by the town manager. We'd just like to know your thoughts on that process. Would you like to have any control over hiring of staff, your own staff, or are you more comfortable with town?
I don't know if we'd, speaking personally, I kind of jumped in at a time when the director was leaving and we were in the process of trying to find somebody. I think it would have been nice to somewhat be included in the interview process, but not necessarily be the final decision, almost just be a voice of, hey, this is what I'm liking this person for this reason, or not necessarily making the decision, but helping.
Okay.
I don't know how you guys feel, but that's kind of
I
what my
agree,
thought was going to
because
happen.
we love Sharon. So
Yes, we do.
we did.
Obviously.
She's there.
It's not because she's just standing behind you?
No, like, I think she's fabulous at the job, and I think
And
the
she
town
picked
did
it
a
up and just
great
ran
job
with it,
with
yeah.
hiring her. But we didn't know who was hired until we came to that selectman meeting where it was announced. And I, again, personally, think that, I can't speak for the whole board here, that the board should have at least been involved with maybe meeting with the finalists or just knowing before the rest of the town did, because it directly affects us.
Okay, back to the transmission meeting.
Who's talking to?
Okay. Thinking about information technology, it sounds like you have more than enough people. But do you have enough enough of, or access to everything that you need to function properly?
Yeah, I think so.
There's opportunities to be better at it.
Okay. Explain.
Well, like for instance, we throw the spring fling, which used to be the snowflake social. Snowflake social. I started with it as snowflake, so that's what I know it as. And like some kind of ticketing system would be, like a digital ticketing system would be great, but it's cost prohibitive for just us. So like there's absolutely opportunities where we can get better at things, but for what we're able to do, our resources are, they're slim, they're adequate, but there's always room for opportunity to make them better. Because we are surrounded by a lot of towns who do a lot of stuff that we do, and they do it better. And I understand that they do that better because they have more funding. For instance, Mansfield has more funding than we do, I'm sure.
A full staff,
They have a full
not
staff.
just volunteers.
We are volunteers. We only have Sharon. Sharon's job could be full-time. She could actually have probably part-time help. Like Parks and Rec is pretty demanding and could absolutely, there is room to grow and there is opportunity. And I do think that we do have room for opportunity, even if we do have fairly adequate resources at the moment.
Thank you for your candor. Anything you'd like to add?
We could use more funding. Just also that, make sure everyone knows that our events are donations.
Yeah.
Like Founder's Day is pretty much a $20,000, an event that we pretty much bring in about 20 grand. I mean, the egg hunt is also all donations, Festival of Lights, things like that. A lot of people think it's coming from the town budget, but it's not.
All of those events are fundraised by us.
Right. So that's why you'll see us out in front of the town meetings and wherever else.
Just kind of surprised you weren't out there with your bucket yesterday.
Just thought about it.
I know you're all relatively new to the commission, but have any of you ever worked with or come across any towns where they're doing something a little bit differently that you'd like to possibly consider?
I have not, just because I haven't seen anything.
This is my first experience with any of this, but for the most part, we're a group where if we come up with some kind of idea, like, oh, let's throw this event, we do talk it out and see if it's reasonable and manageable for us to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, the group itself is pretty open to new ideas as they come up.
And again, it's if I may speak,
Sure.
it's funding again an organization. They're much bigger as opposed to us. We're shoestring.
Yep. Okay. As it relates to how our town government operates, are there things that you think that we should start doing, continue doing, or stop doing?
Is that an open question?
It
Beyond,
is, anybody, fair game, go right down the line.
beyond the rec?
I'm sorry?
Beyond the rec department?
If you want to speak on a,
You gotta let me speak. I'll let the lady speak first.
This is my first experience with a small town government, so like I grew up in cities, so I'm still kind of getting my head around how it all works.
yep,
I
same.
So is everybody else.
do want to offer an opinion.
I attended my first town meeting a couple months ago, so still learning.
How'd you enjoy it?
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Let her rip.
The floor is yours.
The floor, thank you. The town meeting itself, we should go to either a representative town meeting or to, is it a council, a town council? A 9-member, obviously, either a 7 or a 9-member board. We're getting, you know, we're too big, but I sent something to Amy today, as a matter of fact, through her Facebook, and said that, you know, I'm from Norwood, and they have had representative town meeting. They're a bigger town than us, but they've had representative town meeting for, I assume, decades. And they just had an override, so everybody was, you know, for or against the override, and that's how you got elected, all these new town meeting members, and supposedly all the town employees got elected so that the override would pass, because those are the ones that voted for it. So now it's the next meeting after the election. The override went through, they all got raises, or they were all funded, or whatever it was that they needed. And then that town, actually, just not to sidetrack a little bit, but that town has Route 1, so it has all the car dealerships. So that town should never have a funding problem. But all the town employees got elected to town meeting as members. The next meeting after the election, nobody's there. So all these representative town meeting members are just, they scattered. They got their way, they scattered. So which, I was always thinking that this town should go representative town meeting, but now I'm looking toward going to council, however you want to call it, 9 people or 7, you know, you come up with the number, and have 7 dedicated, I mean, you've got this crew right here that's going to work for a year and a half or whatever it is, and I thank you very much for doing that. This is a great idea.
Thank you.
So we'll go to, hopefully, town council. That eliminates the town moderator. The town moderator in this town, you know, personal beliefs here, wields a lot of power. He wields the power for the finance committee, which can be very influential in certain issues. Might have happened a couple years ago with the rec department. What else? Just that would eliminate that position. And that's something that I've had just a recent issue with. So the finance committee, and then just,
If FinCom were appointed in another manner,
yeah, as a matter of fact, in Norwood, I think it's voted on, that they're voted in there. So it all depends on, somebody could be for a project or against a project, and then start loading the, 11 members of the finance committee? Yeah, I think it's 11, that they could be all loaded a certain way. If somebody's there long enough, I know these members that have been on our finance committee have been there, you know, for many years. So I'm just looking for it to move that way.
any questions for anybody on the, yes?
I don't know if you guys, what's the budget of the rec commission right now?
It's a whopping 18,000.
What is, I'm sure I'm throwing you a spot here, and I don't want you to throw me exact numbers, but do we have any numbers on what the average towns around us would be? Like, do you know what Mansfield is close to? Do you know what Easton's close to?
I don't have numbers, but I know they have 2, Mansfield has 2 full-time staff people benefited, obviously, and a part-time person, and I believe Easton has 3 full-time people.
And then they have, do you know if they have certain things worked into their budget where they're putting some of these events on so that you guys aren't strapped to so much, like, I'm just wondering, is Mansfield going out and collecting money at town meetings and volunteering time, or is when they need a spring fling and they need a ticket thing, that comes out of their budget of X amount of dollars?
I know that they do some of that. I don't know about the town meetings, the panhandling, as I call it, but I do believe they have town money to fund some of their efforts, maybe not all of it, but I'm looking into ways to try to do that so that we have.
I mean, donations are great. I mean, without them, we wouldn't be able to have these events, as you guys know. But, I mean, like, a perfect example of that ticket thing, I mean, like, how much smoother could it have gone if we're able to budget out of that, you know, without you guys having to go out and ask for donations to pay for something that the town should be able to fund?
Well, if the town would be willing to invest a little money up front and, like, allow us to, well, I shouldn't say allow us, but help fund what we would need for, like, swimming lesson program. Easton makes a ton of money on that, but you need some resources there, people power, and money for supplies and whatnot. So, a little forethought.
It's probably more frustration. I'm just, like I said, I'm just wondering what, you guys are doing a great job, but it's just, at some point, donations just don't cut it.
Well, I remember when you had come and spoke with us, you were mentioning that you were trying to get to a point where you would have more opportunity in your programming to raise money to become more self-sufficient. And I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, kind of spending a little bit of money in order to get that back and make you more self-sufficient.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Is there anything we didn't ask you about that you'd like to
Did you go over the pool at all
talk about?
in the
That
past?
was what the swimming lessons reference was, but
Okay.
if you'd like to talk about the pool.
No, just that, it's not just Founder's Day and, the spring fling and things. Sharon does have the Everett Leonard Park and the pool there, and everything that deals with that, too. She's busy.
And trash.
Tricentennial Park.
And just Tricentennial Park, that's,
Yes.
that's
Trash
an,
is a big issue.
Anything else that we didn't ask that you wanted to bring up with us? No?
Thank you for volunteering.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time this evening, too, and thanks for your patience.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we have acceptance of the prior meeting minutes, which were the minutes of October 7th. If there were no questions whenever you're ready, no questions or comments, I will accept a motion to accept the minutes of the 7th. Last one done moves the easy one.
I'll motion to accept the minutes of whatever the date is.
Do we have a second?
Second it.
All in favor? Okay. The minutes of Monday, October 7th are accepted. All right, I'm going to jump around because I'm excited about this one. The Board of Selectmen have approved remote participation as of last evening.
Yay.
Unfortunately, I would have liked to have voted on it tonight, but there is a special policy that they put in place, and kind of given last night's meeting, I would like everybody to have a chance to read the policy before we vote on it. It's only prudent, I think. Within that policy, from my understanding, the selectmen want each committee that adopts it, every member has to sign it. And there is going to be some monitoring of it, at least on a temporary basis, to see what the usage is. And I think they want to make sure it's just not being abused.
Sign the policy itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I have asked for a copy of that. The select person that I spoke with had it still in draft form. So I told them we would wait for the final version to make sure it's correct. Once I have that in the next, hopefully, few days, I will get that out to you, and I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting we'll have a formal vote on it.
Is there anything particular in the draft that interest?
No, it was, it went into use, or why it can be used. I think there was some stipulation with the number of times it may be used, and was it in a row or was it in general?
I don't know what they finally decided on.
Yeah, it was
They were
kind
talking
of,
about, like, reviewing it. They wanted to put something, some language in, that they were gonna review it in so many months. or-
yeah. So we're kind of on a probationary period. And again, I brought this up even at the meeting, we do have a Polycom phone available to us, but if it does not get picked up by the media center, then we're kind of dead in the water and we're not going to be able to use it. So everybody's got to be able to hear it. They've got to be able to hear us on the tape. We may have some technical difficulties. It may not actually wind up working out, but we at least have the opportunity to try it, which is great. We appreciate that.
Does remote participation, is it just audio, or is it video too, or no?
I believe it does allow for video. It's not required.
It's not required?
Yeah. No, at this point, it's just audio. Okay, so that was the good news. So going back to the upcoming interview schedule, any changes? I know we got,
Just the one today, the
Okay.
planning board's coming on November 18th.
okay, so
What was it? I'm sorry.
the planning board is going to be coming on the.
Same schedule as last time.
Okay.
I passed out, so I.
Just adding another.
Just one more, yeah.
Yeah, they came in today and said they'll come the 18th?
18th, yeah.
All right, make sure they know that's the meeting at the library?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And with regards to the survey, our efforts last evening were fabulous. We're up to 124 responses total. We had 118 2 weeks ago, so maybe we'll see a few more in the coming days.
Did the 6 come in last night?
Yeah, I honestly, I meant to check yesterday and I forgot, so I can't even attribute it, the 6 new ones to just the puppy. I can't even say it was the puppy.
We got, I think, one new one, so I get an email still every time a new one comes in.
Oh,
We
okay.
got one new one today. They've been trickling in 1 or 2 a week. I've reviewed the last 10 or so today, and they were either things that we've already heard, frankly, some personal attacks in there of.
Yeah, there's a couple of good ones.
Yeah, and then some other things that I think are mostly out of scope of what we're able to do. So people are still putting in information, people should still put in their thoughts, but I don't think we got anything that's a net add over when we first did the review several weeks ago.
Yeah. And I think we decided to take that offline at the end of November, right after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Did we talk about, last meeting, I can't remember, Janie, are you also adding those to the issues list, or is that something we're doing separately?
No, we had mentioned it, and I can do that. I thought I'd wait until we closed them
Okay.
out and then just put them all together.
I
I mean, I think I
remember what we
really,
said.
yeah, I think I maybe have 30 or 35 from that initial meeting.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
But I was
But
just
that
gonna
is
wait.
all get compiled with
Yeah,
the
I
list.
can compile
Perfect.
that, but I thought I'd wait until we got them all in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, I'd be,
I mean, I
certain,
can
stranger
do it.
things have happened, but I would be surprised if we started getting, relevatory.
Right, I mean, I can do a preliminary one now because I don't know how many more we're gonna get, but.
Based on 124 and how long?
Yeah. Well, we got 1, 2, 3, I got to check the envelope, I forgot to do that tonight. I think there's been 4 handwritten ones that I've picked out of the,
So the ones that you're picking up from the envelope, are you adding them to the spreadsheet that
I've
comes from the?
scanned them and put them on Dropbox. I don't really want to type it. I don't want to, some of the handwriting is a little.
Hard to read.
Yeah. So I have scanned them and put them on Dropbox so you can see them in their original state.
I did see a bunch. I didn't know if you were adding them to the spreadsheet too, that
No.
was being printed from the.
No, I'm not sure. We can have a discussion about that. I'm happy to do it. There's not, nobody's written a novel that it would take terribly long, but I felt a little weird, especially if there was, something I couldn't read necessarily or decipher.
I suspect it doesn't matter
Yeah,
based on
I
how
wouldn't
you're
worry about it.
categorizing.
If I'm gonna do it anyway, I wouldn't worry about you
Okay.
putting them
Yeah.
in. I
That's fine.
I'll just put them all together.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Any other admin items anybody needs to talk about? Okay.
Just going back to the remote participation, is there a plan to test the
We're gonna
public?
have to, yeah, and it's probably gonna have to be outside of a meeting, because we don't really want it to waylay us. I'm not sure we if we're the first ones to vote it, maybe we can just do a little test run of it. In a point where the room's just not being used, see how we do. But we're gonna have to get feedback from Shane as to whether or not it's being picked up.
So is that microphone usually live?
I believe so, yes. So my thought is we could either grab, move the Polycon up there or move that microphone down there specifically for that phone, and see how that works. Shane, if we wanted to test that on a night or a day we're not in the meeting, would you be available to do that, just so we know what the audio sounds like on the,
Thursdays would be best for me,
okay,
and it's also, the town hall's open best for.
okay, all right,
So, just for access in here,
yep,
and for my availability, that would be the best day of the week.
okay, thank you. And you don't mind coming in and just doing a little test run with us?
I have no objection to it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We appreciate it. We'll be in touch. So let's vote it in and see if it works. All right. Information gathering. Kevin went to play bingo
Oh,
with the folks at the Council on Aging.
isn't that usually a bus trip to the Foxwoods or whatever? No.
They have full bingo on Tuesdays at 12:30.
Oh, at the hall,
So I
okay.
went there on the 15th. I did not play bingo because I know newbies are not welcome to play bingo.
Especially if you win.
If you win,
Yeah.
right?
So.
They will cut you.
There was I was impressed with how many people were there, and they're very, very tight. They were pushing people into the back rooms. They had to have a microphone system set up because people in the back rooms aren't really a part of the main room. They were very nice. They let me speak for just a few short minutes before. Obviously, they wanted to get playing, so I was on borrowed time. But I just let them know that we were obviously meeting, and it gave them some information about what we're doing and looked for some input. I also explained to them about the surveys. There was only 2 that were completed. They were over 95% blank. They both had 1 sentence, and they both included getting a new council on aging. It's pretty much the ongoing theme there. Any feedback I did get was budgetary with council on aging and getting them a new community center, and they obviously pointed out how tight they were, and they're trying to play bingo. So it was eye-opening, and I appreciate them letting me come and speak.
So are there blank ones still there in case someone else decides to fill?
They have blank ones there, and they have a way to turn them in. I also explained that they can do it online, and obviously they can complete it by handwriting. And I also said if they wanted to come to a meeting, if they wanted to email one of us, or just in general call us, I gave them some more contact information. But I'm going to say well over 98% was a new council on aging building and more funding. I don't think they really care how they get it done. They just want it done. So there's really no other easy way to say it. That's just.
Yeah, okay.
I explained to them a little bit that the charter and whatnot was a little bit out of the scope of what they were talking about. But again, I don't think they're looking for excuses. I think they're looking for results. And
They just want to tell anyone who will hear it.
anybody who wants to come in and tell them, and honestly, at this point, I think, it's beyond need. I think it's just, I was trying to explain to them a little bit of the charter, charter commission and, what our scope is, but, it's falling on deaf ears. I think they need a new building.
Okay.
They want what they want.
I can't blame them.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you for doing that. All right, a couple of things I just wanted to bring up and just make sure everybody was okay with. Since we have a vote coming up on the next agenda, I'm going to specifically put it on there. But going forward, considering we're going to start getting to a point where we're going to be voting on things, I was going to steal the disclaimer that's on the bottom of the Board of Selectmen's agendas, where it just states, please note it's possible that a vote may be taken by the Charter Commission regarding any of these agenda items, just to kind of cover our behinds in the event that we do decide to vote on something and we get a complaint. So that was the first thing, so I'm probably going to start putting that on, starting with the next meeting. And then I had a thought, having read some of the, specifically it had to do with town council forms of government, where they had specific rules within their charter where they could not vote on an item on the same night that they, or the same day that they had discussed it, meaning it had to be carried over to the vote had to be carried over to a second meeting. And I think the intent was to give the public time to come in and make any comments that they may want to be heard on prior to a vote. I don't think that's a bad idea, and wanted to get everybody else's idea and see what they thought.
For us, for
To do it for us, yes. So if we were to discuss a specific topic that was on the agenda, even if we were completed with it and we felt that, we may even be in agreement to hold or postpone that vote until the following meeting, to give the public time to specifically come in and address that if they'd like to. I didn't know what anybody's thoughts were on that. I thought it seemed like a fair way of going about things.
But I'm not necessarily against the idea, but it doesn't feel like it's an exact analogous situation.
Not entirely,
In
but
the town council, if they're voting on something, it's to be implemented, right? We would be
Yes.
voting on things to recommend
yes.
to the greater population.
That they will then vote on.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
not like if we vote on something, it becomes
I agree.
the law or
Right.
I don't know what the word is, right, but it
true.
becomes something that we will eventually recommend for them to vote on.
Yep. I just want to give the public as much of an opportunity to make their voice heard and feel like they're being heard.
I don't disagree with that at all. Have
But
we
you're
had
right, they are
two
at the
members
vote.
of the public in however many meetings we've had? One, okay.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about the survey responses already, and so I wouldn't want to see us, if we think it's going to delay progress or delay the ability for us to move, I wouldn't want to see us do that, just given the reality of, Peter's been great about being here for every meeting, I think.
Yeah.
But he's pretty much the only one in town for whom we can say that.
Yeah, and I'm just conscious about, I guess, misleading or frustrating people. If we think we're aligned on something on a vote, and then somebody comes in and offers an opinion that is adverse to ours and we don't change our vote, they're gonna feel like I came in and poured my heart out and it fell on deaf ears and it had no impact.
Yeah. And if it's on the agenda, they can certainly
have the
come in
opportunity.
day that it's on
Yep.
the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I see different is, not to downplay the public, I see for us. So for instance, if we're discussing something that maybe is at length, I think the small decision's not gonna be the issue. I think if we're discussing something on a larger that could affect the charter or something that we are gonna push forward to the town, I wouldn't mind a week to think about it and to actually take it all in.
Yeah.
For my own personal thing, if we're gonna be putting our vote on or our name on it to say, hey, this is what I agree with this, I think if all of a sudden we're talking about something, we speak to something for an hour, I think if it's that important, I wouldn't mind a week or two until our next meeting thing.
But we still can do that.
But you can just say, I want to push the vote, I'm not ready to vote tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, I think
Well, I was gonna
because-
say, we could adopt that. The town council uses the same thing.
Well, I
where
just
they-
think with this, I think, Laura, what you're saying is if we do adopt that with everything, then we give everybody that time to die. I don't think we should start going back into a discussion. So for instance, we're gonna have the discussion in the meeting, when we come back in, it's a simple vote. I don't think it's delaying progress for us to discuss what we're having at a meeting. We know next meeting, we're gonna take a vote on this. Let your vote be heard and be done with it, but at least it gives you 2 weeks to make sure that I have all my facts straight, I can review the paperwork I have, and I'm not, pigeonholed into making a decision within the hour or so that we're here.
Well, how about if we've discussed something and we just simply take a poll? Are we ready to vote on it tonight, or do we need more time? And everybody has the opportunity to say, no, I would like to vote.
I think that's reasonable.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. As long as we have the ability that if something comes up.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be lumped into saying we have to vote on this right now.
No, and I don't want
No.
anybody to be
Don't feel
pressured
pressure,
into
right.
feeling like they have to make a decision, because personally, I'm one of those people that, especially when I start hearing ideas that I may have not considered or may be contrary to mine, you know, it's helpful to sometimes go back or walk away and think about it a little bit more. So, no, that's a great idea.
And if we take a vote on something, and then we hear opinions later, you know, people show up after we took the vote, I believe we can do a revote, it could be open for reconsideration. And the reason I asked that question, because I can kind of envision this, and I think it's kind of what Dave was getting at in a way too, is I don't think people are gonna show up here until we make, on controversial topics. Not that we're gonna be talking about it, or even that we're gonna be voting on it. It's gonna be after we vote.
I agree.
And the ones who didn't like it are gonna show up.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, I think, so I can see it coming after the fact. And I'm not saying they all show up and they're mad at us, or whatever they are, maybe they love what we did, either way, doesn't mean we're gonna change our opinion, but then again, I can see when we're gonna get the feedback
Yeah.
subsequent to the vote on some of these issues.
Right.
And, you know, and sometimes it may be legitimate issues, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking we might, based on what we hear.
Yeah, if
'cause that
there's
may be the-
newer.
That may be the first serious.
If there's new
public comment we get,
information.
is when we make a controversial vote, and it sets off a little firestorm, then we have a lot of people out the door here.
I think we
Well,
need
I
to recognize,
guess-
oh, sorry.
Well, I also think at some point when we're gonna make a controversial vote on something big, I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to have another public hearing, where we put out, this is, you know, what we're looking at, and this is specifically what we're gonna be voting on. Doesn't necessarily have to be they come in here, but we do have to have another public hearing, I think, at some point, and educate the people in terms of, you know, if we're talking about town council, what that means for Norton. If we're talking about representative government, representative town meeting, what that means for the town of Norton. I think at some point, we do have to do that.
Right. But that's a good point, too. So then you have the public meeting.
But you
At some
have,
point,
you have
maybe-
those all at the end anyway, right?
Yeah,
That's
but
part of the
but that's
process.
when you get your feedback. So there must be a mechanism to go back and reconsider.
Right.
Because otherwise, you know, I don't think we just give it to them and say, this is what we're doing.
And I don't think anything, I mean, if, for instance, if we take, you know, if we started making votes very, you know, shortly here in the next couple of meetings, I don't think we're, you know, and having to, oh, well, already made that vote. I think that we want to put our best, whatever we're going to put forward, we want to make sure it's the best version of it. So I don't
Yeah.
think that if all of a sudden we find out 2 months from now that something that we are voting on affected the original thing, I don't see anything that we can't go back and say, well, we need to adjust this or, you know, compensate for this thing that we're doing because we feel that this is important, but we understand it's going to affect one of these things that we already voted on.
Yeah.
You know?
Where I disagree on opening it up for reconsideration is if we have, let's say, had, you know, 3 meetings in a row where we have exhausted a topic and we feel like we have made the best decision, I'm reticent to open it up for reconsideration based on town opinion. You know, if they can provide new information that we did not have before, yeah, I'm happy to take that in, but based on
Yeah, I'm not saying-
feelings.
I'm gonna go with people, I mean, I'm gonna go with people that are gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here to sing our praises that we're doing such a great job. I mean, that when we stop making controversial decisions, we're gonna, like you said, have the people here that are upset that we've made a decision or that we may be putting this forward. I mean, that's, we knew this going into it.
We have to recognize too, we're not gonna make everyone, it's
I
not
totally
possible.
Yeah,
agree.
I wasn't
100%.
implying that people are upset us that we're gonna reconsider something.
Yeah.
I just, but it's possible we could hear something that makes us
Yes.
reconsider.
Yeah,
Right.
it would have to be new and important information.
So
Did you have
I was gonna
something?
say, usually when you do a motion to reconsider, we would have to then vote to reconsider.
To reconsider it,
So,
yes.
You know,
Right.
if one person wanted to reconsider and the rest of us said, no, we don't want to reconsider, that it's done, right? So
Right.
the decision we'll make as a group.
Okay,
Okay.
that seems fair. Okay, all right, so Sandy do you want to talk about this next?
Yeah, I just, I don't know if anybody else, which boards are part of our charter, which ones are part of our bylaws, and because we've gotten some requests, you know, zoning board making more members, and that's not even in the charter, it's in the bylaws. So I just, not that we couldn't put it in there, but this is sort of an outline of where everything is right now. And a lot of things, the star, if you see, it's right there. The star is just that it was listed in the, one of the many appointments that the selectmen make, but there was no information given about, you know, term or number of members or anything like that, so. if we're looking for, you know, what things are in the charter that we can change, versus what's already in the bylaws, that kind of just outlines everything.
So border survey is not mentioned anywhere, but it's a point.
Yeah, well, and like, look, I found it interesting, Conservation Commission is listed in the charter as one of the Board of Selectmen appointed committees, but it's not, there's nothing, I mean, I guess, again, that goes back to this, the fact that it's probably more state dictated, but it's nothing, there's nothing about the number of members or the terms or anything like that inside the charter or the bylaws.
Yeah, and having read a number of charters now, there doesn't really seem to be a rhyme or reason as to what gets named and defined within the charter versus the
So ours
bylaws.
is all just, everything that's elected gets named in the charter and specified in the charter.
Yeah,
Anything that's appointed maybe gets just mentioned,
if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if that.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it comes down to how difficult do you want it to be to change that if you want to change it at some point.
Right.
Which is why some things get pushed off into the bylaws versus the charter.
Okay.
And so maybe there are some towns that feel like they don't want changes to happen very easily in certain committees or whatever, so they put it in their charter instead. I don't know. Yeah.
It was interesting, we just divided it by elected versus appointed, and I'm not sure what the rationale for that was, but.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, that's helpful. All right, so one of the things that we were going to talk about was additional information that we feel that we may want to review before we start making decisions, and whether that involves, it's kind of an open forum at this point, whether that involves, you know, bringing in specific people, specific towns, if there are specific things we wanted to read, or information that we may want to request from the town or one of the departments within the town. So can kind of open that up. We also would have to figure out if we are going to seek out additional information or do some more research, who's going to be responsible for doing that and in what manner and time frame. So I will open that up. Who would like to start?
I think the one that I was thinking of when I suggested it is all the talk about, we've heard from people about DPW. And I just feel like that's such a huge change.
Mhm.
And we're talking to people, and we're gonna be talking to people about forms of government, but we're not really talking to people right now who, you know, have a DPW or move to a DPW, and would some of that information be helpful to talk to other towns and see what that consists of, and how that looked when they switched from, you know, their two separate rehab to one combined.
Do we know of any charter commissions that took that on, that we know of?
Not that I know of, no.
Is that something we might want to ask either the MMA or Lauren Goldberg about? Yes, it is, but do we want to do that in advance of them coming in? Is time of the essence?
No, I don't, I mean, they're coming in, what?
The 7th, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay, so not,
That
yeah.
would be a good question.
Couple days after the next meeting?
I know we have that ability, but is that something
Yeah,
realistically that
yeah,
we
it
should be looking at? Or-
has a charter commission undertake, is it even advisable?
Mhm.
Is it that too complex of a process to undertake on our own, given the other things we may want to accomplish?
And by undertake, do you mean like just calling other towns, like calling Foxborough and talking to their DPW?
Yeah, there's a few towns, I think, recently that have
Yeah.
moved, Plainville, Foxborough, more, like maybe 10 years ago or so, that have recently switched over. And I'm curious, we keep hearing about the fact that, you know, that we need an engineer.
Right.
Would an engineer, though, does a DPW director also do things outside of the DPW, you know, engineering services?
Right.
So those kinds of questions are kind of what I was
Right.
thinking about.
So I don't understand, why do we have to wait for council, town council, to tell us that's okay.
I was curious as to whether so there have been towns that have created a DPW,
Yeah.
but not within, the Charter Commission didn't do it, the town just did it on their own, so they set up a committee for that purpose alone. I am concerned about undertaking it as, specifically as the Charter Commission, and whether it is too big and complex a task to do within this commission, and we might have to table it just so that we are not sacrificing the other work that we want to accomplish. I'm just trying to get an idea if anybody's ever, are we blazing the trail, or has another town done it that we may be able to call on and see how the process they went about to do it?
My personal take on it is if we don't do it, it's never gonna get done.
So let me ask you a
Yes.
question. Our scope is to change the charter itself, which is not the meat of any of this stuff.
Yep.
Who goes and does the bylaws later?
That's a question I
Do a bylaw
have.
committee.
And
So I think with like North Attleboro, they went through all the bylaws and they looked for inconsistencies and things that would need to be changed. They just made recommendations of, and then I don't know where that goes from there.
I think
Changes.
they.
That would be my question for town council, what that process looks
I
like.
think they set
because-
up a committee after the Charter Commission was done and voted on. They had a committee specifically to bring their bylaws in line with the charter, but they were also the town that didn't have a charter before.
Right.
Yeah,
So theoretically, right, if that was a decision that we made.
Yeah.
Let's say in theory, we decided we need to get a DPW, and we put that in the charter.
yeah,
We could, in that tail end, like how some of them had like a transitional period and talked about how they would transition.
yeah.
Right? We could write that in, what that would look like, some kind of committee or whatever. But that would be the question to ask Lauren Goldberg, is how do the bylaws then get changed?
Yep.
And do we have to do anything with that? Because if we don't, then I think our job is pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, I just think that with the amount of information that we've heard from people, the amount of people that keep bringing up the DPW, the engineer, or the, trying to combine these things, I think this is the golden opportunity for us to do it. I
Yeah.
just don't see us going forward with whatever changes we're gonna make. We don't take that on, or at least don't, I'm not saying we change it, but
Right.
we don't take a very hard look at it. I just
We're not
don't
doing
see-
our job.
And I just don't see anybody all of a sudden saying, oh, well, after you guys are done, we'll take upon the thing to try to, like, it's just not gonna happen.
An enormous task, right?
Yeah, and I think if, people are gonna look at, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you look at
Yeah.
it? This is what we elected you for, so
Yeah.
even though it may be difficult, I think I'm not saying we vote on it if we decide as a committee to do that, but I think we definitely need to.
Yeah,
Get
and I think when you
information
think about transition plans, that would need a longer transition plan just because of the size of the changes that would be needed, but I
You're
think
talking
we
about
could accommodate it.
You're talking about multiple things, you're talking about, contracts, there's a serious thing of changing over, but I think that if, we at least need to get some information on it.
Right. And even if the process was different, the outcome and the effect is still what we want to look at in terms of the changes and that it would bring and what it brought to wherever it is you're looking at.
So would you all agree then that it would be nice to talk to other towns and get that information? Because I
would
guess my
agree.
concern is I don't think we have time to bring them in.
I would
So
agree.
that would be something we'd have to go out and do.
So I'm curious what legal counsel says on the, if they've seen it and the issues that it could bring up, because Kevin kind of alluded to it, it touches on so many things, that kind of well, beyond the charter, contracts, budgets. You're talking about hiring an engineer, that's more cost. It touches on a lot of other things in this. How does that all fit in? That we just dictate it and somehow it's gonna get funded, or?
I guess that goes back to Denise asking too, what's our charge? Can we, how much detail and how specific and what level do we have to go to? Or can we just make that recommendation and then have a committee like the bylaws that
And-
then looks into it?
Right, and where do we stop short because we're worried about money or budgeting or
Yeah.
something like that? I think that these issues that are coming forward, I'm not sure we can just stop looking because it may not be budgeted in, but I think it's important, like something like this that you're talking about, to look at it regardless.
And I don't know if there's a set time frame on a transition. For instance, if we all of a sudden recommend that we go to a DPW, does this have to happen July 1st? Or can it be within can we put something in the charter by 20 whatever, that we're gonna make the full transition of that to accommodate for those type of things, to give some people some time to fix the bylaws, figure out budgetary, figure out, contracts, figure out how we're gonna appoint or hire an engineer, and so be.
Like building space, like where would they go?
I agree.
Where it's like-
Yeah.
We have, they're two different sides of town right now, so.
I just think that if we don't review it, we're just,
I agree.
Yeah.
we've heard way too many people come in here and literally say, we're selling ourselves short by not at least discussing going to a DPW, hiring an engineer.
And I know, like you said about the finances and, in terms of, it shouldn't stop us, but I would like to know, is this gonna be a huge cost? Is it gonna be a savings? Is it gonna be break even? Like where, it's, because I think recommending something that's gonna cost a whole lot more would definitely weigh in my decision.
Yeah,
I would agree.
that's true.
I would agree. And the only way we know that is to look at it, right?
So you're suggesting that someone reaches out to someone from the DPW, would ask the questions, and then bring that back to committee?
That's, yeah, kind of, well, I
Okay.
mean, I don't know what the easiest thing to do, but like that's, I'm thinking we don't have time to have them in, so then what's the next best option?
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to find a town or that had recently switched, that had two separate departments that collaborated, are they seeing the savings? Are they seeing, a difference in the ability to get jobs done or stuff accomplished? If they are, then I think that's pertinent information for us,
What was the?
And who do you talk to? Do you talk to the?
Maybe the town manager, if the town manager
Well,
was,
that's
if the
what I
town
was
manager of
thinking.
that town was the one that was overseeing the DPW or hiring a DPW director, I think they can probably tell you,
That's what I
this is
was
what we were spending, this is kinda how we consolidate
I
it.
guess I was thinking, you don't really necessarily want to talk to somebody at DPW.
No, because it's probably gonna be just a hire, they may have just been hired when they switched this, if they were hired as a DPW director.
So if you know when it switched, you could probably even look at their town website and probably find their town meeting budget and whatever, if it's available online.
Yeah.
Which if ours is, I would imagine everyone else's is, because we're usually behind the ball.
Yeah. I think between the town manager and the accountant could give us a fairly good
Reading it.
representation of savings, talking to the people within, the DPW themselves may not have the full picture of the town budget and where they're saving money or spending additional money.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
would
know,
that person, I guess I'm also curious about what that person's role is in the town, like as a DPW director, do they weigh in on a planning board, project, right? Because they're an engineer, do they have any responsibilities outside of the DPW because they have that, PE, that's kind of what I was wondering too. Because we've heard from other people besides, we heard from conservation, and we heard from planning, or were we just speculating about planning? Talking about,
No, I believe.
would it be helpful to have an engineer in the town?
I think Paul talked about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
would that, so again, would that person,
A lot of
some
people
towns have
brought it
both,
up.
right? They have a DPW
Keith brought
and
it
an
up.
engineer.
How do we want to go, how do we want to go about gathering the information? Do you need to delegate?
I mean,
Are you gonna- you gonna go off on-
Talk to people, but if
Okay.
anybody wants to come with me, if anybody wants to.
Do you need help, or
Well, I mean,
just
is it-
tell us what, I think
is
you,
it easy to establish a subcommittee, or just one person, or, I don't know what's easiest.
Should we have Keith on that subcommittee so he knows what kind of questions to ask?
That would be good.
Should we volunteer Keith for the subcommittee?
he's not here, he's on.
Yeah.
Carrie and Keith.
Worst thing you can do, skip the meeting.
I will be the first to say I have no interest in it.
I am wholly unqualified.
Right, I wouldn't be able to ask an intelligent
I
question.
think we can maybe table asking Keith if he'd be willing to maybe help you out, or, and if you guys obviously need help, to let us know what to do and delegate to us, and we'll get any information you need, but Keith is obviously gonna know, and he's probably got some serious connections on who to talk to, and.
Yeah,
it's
that's
probably
true, too.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good point. He probably already knows. He's been asked.
Was there any other information anybody else would like to?
I think we need to find some information on IT.
I had that down too.
We've heard it from everybody. I mean, 4 hours or 2 times a week.
So information about like what other towns are doing?
I think, well, it could be, I don't, honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't even matter what other towns are doing. We need to do something. So we need to we need an IT. I mean, there's no real thing around it. How we get there, or how we put in a charter, or how we make it a appointed position as a town thing, I don't know how that's written in other charters, but obviously, we know everybody's come in here and said the same thing, that
I guess what follow-up are we asking for?
I'm going to play devil's advocate if you don't mind. Right now, our charter states the town manager will hire an HR manager. We do not have an HR manager. I think even if we put it in there, I don't know how, it's strictly budgetary at this point, is the only reason we don't have it, and we have no control over that. We can require it, we can put it in there as a IT director under, the town manager will hire one, but it's always subject to appropriations.
I'm also anticipating we have to write a summary report, right? That some of these things that we're hearing that maybe are beyond our scope,
Yeah.
we can make recommendations. Hopefully, we get, finance committee and whoever else, reading the report and looking at some of the needs that we have.
Yeah, because I absolutely agree with you. Everybody has
Maybe
said,
a question for Lauren, though, to see if there's anything we could do to,
give it teeth.
yeah.
well, I think even if you, I mean, just like the HR, even though it's in the charter and for budgetary issues or whatever, the town manager has an appointed one, I think putting an IT in there for us, if the budget was gonna change, it would be a quick transition for them to hire him. I understand one of the, those things may be one of the first things to be cut if they are, or they're not gonna be funded directly, and that's out of our scope. I get that, but, I'd also like to know what, like I asked town manager this, and I can get this information if we're okay with getting it, is what do we pay MX Consulting a year?
Collecting that information, I see what you're saying.
So if we're requesting, we have MX Consultant, we have them for 2 4-hour blocks.
Yeah, 8 hours a week.
So what are we paying them? What are we paying them per year? And how does that work out with hiring an IT person that only works for the town of Norton? I don't know those questions. I'm not a big IT guy, but I would like to know, is that something that we're spending the same amount of money on, and we're only getting somebody 8 hours a day, 8 hours a week? Because I think 8 hours a week for somebody for a police station, fire station, town hall, library, to be split and not have in 2019 is insanity to me.
So
It's insane. It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, we know how much we dealt with it in the beginning.
Just the liability having to do with the protection of the information within the servers of the town. Yeah, we are susceptible to just an insane number of,
And I totally get the budgetary
possibilities.
thing, like of us saying the town manager shall appoint one, and then it never gets appointed. I understand that. But I'd also almost feel more comfortable that we look into that, and that's something that we want to do. We make that part of the charter.
So, but the watch out is, we can say the town manager needs to appoint an IT person, but whether or not he appoints an employee or goes out and hires,
yeah.
and if he hires them for 20 hours or 40 hours.
I can say that's out of our
Yeah.
scope. I just think that we need to do, if
Well,
we get
not
enough people.
necessarily, but doesn't mean we can't put it in the charter, but I'm just saying, like, those are the things to be
We
mindful
can't
of.
enforce it.
Yeah, and I said, we're not gonna be able to tell the town manager who to appoint, if that's what we choose to do, or we're not gonna, he can obviously go out and hire a company or hire for 20 hours a week, but I think the ability for us to have that in there, we know how important it is. We know how many people are here.
It feels like we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in like, we're talking about whether or not this should be in the charter, right? When I think the topic of the conversation is, do we want to collect more information about
Yeah.
this? Right, so I think we're getting wrapped around the axle a little bit in the conversation. So I think the request is, can we get some more information about the costs associated with our IT spend today, such that we can eventually make the decision of whether or not we want to recommend it in the charter,
Yeah.
right?
And we should probably, if we're going to compare, I think we'd also have to look at things other than just salary. We have to take into account benefits as well. So, if we could find a comparable salary for a full-time IT director, and then, ask Mike if, what would the total compensation package, including all benefits, look like for somebody in this salary range?
Yeah, I guess my point in mentioning, like, the structure around he can hire internally or externally, whatever. Basically, if IT was in our charter today, he could say, I've met the requirement, because I hire IT.
Yes.
So that's my only point in saying that, is that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that either the town manager or the FinCom has not already asked this question. Particularly the FinCom.
They may
You know,
have.
so I mean, to me, it's like a question to the town manager, perhaps. This came up. That's what we're thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking he has an answer. And certainly the FinCom, I would imagine, would have an answer also.
I'd be surprised if they didn't ask the question.
What
Wouldn't be
question?
surprised.
Why don't
I-
we have?
I
an
would
Why
be
don't we have a
surprised.
permanent IT person versus?
Yeah, why are we paying the contractor this X number of
Right,
dollars?
right.
We could, whatever, yeah.
I'm just thinking that's something that's been beat to death before, and, you know, and they made the decision that they did, because there's probably reasons behind it.
Budgetary, probably.
Yeah, my guess is that it makes sense on financially.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that answer, but I bet you that's what,
But
I bet you it makes sense.
I do think it's our job to look into every, you know, to,
No, it came up a lot, I think we should look into it. I'm just saying, I'm thinking the town manager probably has, I very much doubt he's gonna say, good question, I never looked at that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's, but I don't know, maybe he will, I doubt it, but.
But the IT is something that's always going to be constantly changing and constantly updating. It's not going away. It's only going to get more
Sure.
prevalent in our personal lives, in government, in education. Like, it's only going to get more prevalent. And to not look at it and consider putting it in there in some type of parameter where it can't be ignored, I think is a disservice.
I have no problem finding out at least what we are paying per year for MX, and then on top of it, I don't mind looking around other towns that guaranteed have a full-time IT person to figure out what some of the comparable salaries could be. I mean, obviously, we'd be a little bit different depending on what package they offer them, but as an entry-level IT, what would be a ballpark? At least so we know that if we do want to vote on including that in the charter, whichever way we do, we at least have an idea that if the town manager, this town manager, another town manager, or one down the line says, yeah, I'm going to appoint this is what we're looking at for a budgetary increase, at least we have an idea that we want to approach that. I just think with this many people coming in here and saying that this is one of the major issues that they're having with their committee, or whether they're elected, whether they're appointed, whether they're hired by the town, I just think it's crazy for us not to at least look at information when it's pretty prevalent of how easy it is to get that information.
I think it'd be nice to be able to explain to people, if we decide not to go that route, this is why we didn't go this route. We looked into it, we found this out, and then the cost, or whatever it is. If
Even
we
to
get an
dispel it.
answer-
Even to
right,
dispel it,
right,
yeah.
This is, I mean, it's, for me, it's about being able to, once we get to the point where we're gonna sell whatever recommendations we're making, having the backup, having the facts, being able to say, this is why we did this is why we didn't do that, so.
So if we're just collecting data for purposes of our discussions later on,
Yeah.
one of the questions that I was thinking I'd like to ask Lucia is for some statistics over the last, I don't know, 5 years or so of attendance at town meetings versus number of voters, just to have the hard numbers.
Yep.
I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but.
Yep. On a related,
Last night at the town meeting, 137 people showed up.
That's right.
thank you. I have a related ask on my list, and it had to do with if we are going to contemplate moving away from open town meeting into something along the lines of representative town meeting. In order to make that decision, one of the things that we've been hearing about, and actually Mark Sweeney brought it up specifically tonight, was the level of participation. And I think we should probably do some investigations into towns that have representative town meeting and find out whether they're having difficulty filling those spots. And, being able to use that as, some rationale for the decisions that we're making. And does representative town meeting then accomplish, what we want if we've got an issue with participation?
I would even take that one step further, and do they have contested races? Right, not just openings or being able to fill them, but if they're filling them just by, either
Just specifically with
appointing
RTM?
or- Right, right. Because that also tells me something. If you're just getting whoever happens to volunteer, you're really not electing, you're not choosing.
You're signing up.
How much, right.
Yeah. So that is some information that I would like to have available, and I would love a volunteer to look into that further, and I'm looking at the person that I would like to volunteer for that. If you don't mind, if you can make some calls to probably town managers, I'm thinking, within towns that have representative town meeting, and find out what the participation level is, find out what the number they have assigned, how many are currently filled, and whether or not they are frequently contested.
Okay.
I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything that they want to?
So am I asking
Dig
Lucia
into?
about the town meeting numbers?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Just want to make sure.
No, please and thank you.
Wait, while you're doing that, can you see if she can pull, similar as we're looking for the number of contested races for representative town meetings on basis, for our elections over the past X years, how many have been contested?
One of
Are you
the,
talking for every board or for?
At least for selectmen, if it's easy to pull some of the others, that would be interesting. I feel like I know the answer
So-
already a little bit, but.
how far back do we want to go?
I guess just so I know how to ask her that question, are we looking for contested by position or just contested overall? Like if she says, out of the 400 elected positions in the last 2 years, 3 of them had contested races, but we want to know specifically where those were.
I guess if it's easy to get the detail, but if it's gonna be like going through PDFs for the, then.
Yeah.
Then maybe not.
Okay.
I just don't have a good enough idea to know how hard it's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So maybe the first question is, how hard would it be to find out? Then once we get that answer, we can do the next step.
I'm getting a deja vu. I'm going to pull up, it was either Amherst or North Attleboro it was Amherst, they had all the money. Amherst not only had like some consultant and an attorney, they also hired the Collins Center to assist them. And they
Collecting that kind of data?
Yeah, well, no, but what they did was they put a chart together of that data. And it was really helpful, so I'm gonna see if I can actually find it, and maybe we can,
Leverage the
Yeah.
format.
yes, that's what I'm going for. I'm pretty I think it was Amherst that did it. I'm gonna look. But it was a nice little, and it had like, red, orange, yellow colors, depending on whether, it was a contested seat or nobody was in it, or nobody ran.
Oh, so they must have like listed each one and then.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I don't remember what level, like if it went down to every elected position or if it was simply just the selectmen. But I'll go and I'll see if I can dig it out. But it looked good, and it, kind of graphically represented in a very, kind of like I don't know, I'm all into the visualization of the data now. And I was talking about maybe my husband works for a company that the system will make word clouds, which I kind of like, and planning the master plan, just posted one on theirs based on the discovery workshop that they just did. But I was thinking it would be a nice thing if we could do as well, and once it's in an Excel format, you just kind of spit it out and the system does it itself, but a good, quick visual representation of why we are looking at certain things and maybe making decisions that we're making.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to go back, North Attleboro might be a good one to look at with that RTM, just because they went from one to the other.
Just recently,
Yeah, just to get an idea on what, maybe the last couple of years before they switched, were they having an issue with RTM reps? Like, what were they doing?
And of course, the town manager's not there.
Well, I mean, maybe a person
Yeah,
on that charter commission
Yeah.
can understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, this is, you know,
Yeah,
Because what would be interesting, going back to your question about contested races, is if you can get to the detail of was it contested, was there an incumbent running? Right, because I think that's where we see, just in my own mind, we see contested races if it's not against an incumbent. As soon as an incumbent runs, then it's uncontested, right? That's more.
I mean, people don't want to run against an
Right,
incumbent.
right. Like, is it more? I mean, that's my perception. I don't know if that's actually what the data would show.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Maybe what would be easier for me to do is just ask her to provide, if she can get me a copy of all the ballots, and I'll collate it in different ways, if she has them easily.
I would think that's actually probably an easy ask.
Yeah.
that's probably right, the PDF email, it's gotta be, at least for the last
the results.
several years.
Yeah. I don't know if the results are at least available online.
Yeah, but she can, yeah, like she said, she can correlate
Ballots
them.
do the same thing, yeah.
All right.
But the result, if you can't get the ballots, the results would really show how many people ran for each of the.
That's true, yeah. Could have tallies, yeah.
David, to help you out, I was going to just do a quick query search and see if I could find any articles, publications, newspaper articles that have mentioned specifically, issues with filling vacancies. We can target those towns specifically, possibly.
That's right, just like me when I post all these old articles from the past on Facebook for people to see.
right.
We gotta put Peter to work for us.
Right?
Bad, it's only 9:00. Anything else anybody feels like they want some more information on?
Well, I had on my list, I feel like a repeated mention has been come up about the moderator and the appointment of FinCom. So I'd like to look at other towns and with representative town government and also open town meeting and see how they do it.
Okay.
I know there were a lot of suggestions thrown out.
Yeah.
But see how maybe other towns do it.
Yep.
It'd even be interesting to see how town councils, because they don't have a moderator, so clearly they're not gonna do that. They're gonna have some other, if they have a
What's
finance
the
committee,
alternative?
yeah.
Yep.
Good. Anything else?
No, I mean, I kind of made a list of just, I guess, issues. I don't know if it's necessarily worth. I mean, I can kind of go down my list if you like. Yeah. So I had mentioned, composition of town councils, and, at large versus by precinct or a mix of two, what's the best there while going at. So it's, which maybe a lot of it might be personal opinion, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, I don't, so that's one of the things that.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I had on the list for Lauren and the MMA is
Yeah.
is there a trend one way or another? Is there the pros and cons?
Yeah, right. A lot of these, I think that maybe she can help us out a lot.
Yeah, I think when I started, I thought I had a lot more information than I wanted, and I realized that, if we just talked to even just a couple more towns or just town council, or just looked at all of these various towns, they might be able to answer them much quicker than us digging up.
Yeah. It was just and as I went through these questions, I was like, I think I started with Amherst as a base. And then, you start looking, the other ones, and I have notes here about, I couldn't even understand. This is about appointing vacancies, but water towns, I read it over 10 times, and I still can't understand what it says. So I was like, I was gonna text Carrie, but then I said, yeah. But I'm like, I read this thing 5 times, I don't know what it's saying. But anyway, then I had noted citizen petitions, what's a reasonable hurdle rate? In different towns had, Amherst had 250 initial signatures, and
Yeah.
then with 5%.
Same with referendums,
Yeah,
calls,
exactly.
yeah.
You know,
And-
Watertown was was kind of at the other end of that spectrum, where they, up front, you had to have 10 and then additional 5. So what, you know, I would consider Amherst probably more citizen-friendly, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But, you know, what's right, what's wrong, you know, why do they choose one versus the other?
Pros and cons, I think, is another.
Yeah,
factor to ask.
yeah. I mean, a lot of these, I think, like I don't think we have to go calling around. I think Lauren can probably give us some guidance. I just made a note, any value in having the master plan, long-term plans being required in the charter. And what I was getting at is it just in there and they don't really do it? They go through the motions, you know, I made the same comment about the budget message.
I forget, do we have a master plan in our charter?
No, we do not.
I
I don't
I
think so.
thought we did, actually.
I think it might mention,
I think it talks about something about a capital plan, perhaps.
Oh, maybe.
maybe.
But I was kind of getting at, you know, is it just verbiage, or, you know, if they find out that it helps to actually
Hold it to them.
hold it to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You
some
know?
charters actually named who was responsible, like, for that, right, for the,
Yeah,
which we probably, we have that, but we just don't name it, and would it help to name it?
right,
Yeah.
right.
I think if you make that a job responsibility of somebody and it's named in the charter, you can hold them to it. They're not doing their job.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, you know, I can write up a budget message too, and it can be 3 sentences, or I can write up, you know, 2 pages, and I can
I'm
check
sorry,
out the box.
David, what was the first, I started taking a note and I lost my train of thought and I've forgotten it. What was the first issue you had raised? I just want to make sure it's on the Lauren.
Composition of town council.
Oh, I know, whether they were at large or,
Large or
got it.
per mix, yeah.
Yep.
I noted this composition of boards, and I just said in bylaws or charter, so I was kind of getting at where should they be spelled out? What's the composition of the board? You know, planning board is consistent of 9 members. I mean, should that be something that's in the charter, or should it be in the bylaws? Let's see, I just put how to elect president and vice president to a town council, among votes of members only, or by election results. I think that came up the last meeting, I think.
Yes.
How best to fill town council vacancies. That's the one I couldn't understand Watertown's for the life of me, like how they propose to do that.
Yeah.
Because you could either have an election, or you could be appointed, and I just made a note, town manager residing in town, any value to having that clause?
Yeah, I've got that on my,
Yeah.
I'm trying to outweigh the pros and cons of, you know, is there a,
Yeah, again, I think Lauren could probably speak to that, you
Yeah.
know, from a practical perspective.
or even
I-
just what the trends are.
Yeah, and I think everyone else has mentioned everything I mentioned. The only thing I noticed is appointment versus voting versus elected for planning board members. 'Cause I know some towns.
They do it a
goes
little
both ways,
differently,
so.
yeah.
I don't know if there's any trend going one way or the other there. Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Okay.
I'll definitely save that list for when you talk to
Lauren and, yeah.
Yeah.
I think your list and my list are almost the same.
Mine's similar, yeah.
Because I was looking at like, you
Yeah.
know, if we consider the form of government change.
I didn't have the at-large or precinct
Yeah,
question
we have,
on
like,
there, but
Referendum criteria, term of members, do we want to stagger all at once? How is the president chosen? Number of members? There's like a huge amount of decisions that if we change away from
Oh, yeah, there
Well,
is. Oh,
government.
absolutely.
Yeah.
either, even with representative town meeting or town council, both kind of the same amount of decisions there. Overwhelming.
Yeah. It is.
That's just one change, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, I made a note that just, when going through it, I noticed that most towns who have town council, not all, but most do not have finance committees.
Yeah.
If
Or they
if
make up their
have
own
town
finance
council, they don't
committee.
have Finance committees, yeah.
Right? Oh, they may have a subcommittee of.
Yeah, the finance, the town council is,
Yeah, but it's a subcommittee of the town
Council.
council.
yeah, and they've got like non-voting members from other areas, if I'm not mistaken, one of them did.
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw, the Southborough has an advisory committee or something, you know, how, Bill was talking about finance committee changing the name to an advisory, because they don't just vote on the finances, right? They vote on everything, so.
Right.
So there are definitely towns that have moved to calling it an advisory committee, and.
Yeah. There's also, I had a question about whether FinCom should be the entity that makes the recommendations for all of the articles at a meeting.
Yeah, well, like the advisory committee kind of implies, I guess they do advise on everything, right?
Yeah.
And then the other argument is,
But if
why
it's-
are they advising?
But if it's bylaw or, let's say, zoning or
Yeah,
should it be represented at town meeting by, planning board instead of, should the planning board make the recommendation as opposed to FinCom?
Right. yeah, and I might, well, yes. I'm gonna keep that to myself, but the.
Well, that was what was in.
I have a thought, but I'm not sharing it.
Did everybody have a chance to see Jennifer's email?
Oh, yeah.
That was one of her questions is why
Why?
are they recommending
Yeah.
non-finance? I mean, I guess Bill's response was kind of that versus an elected board, right? So you could say planning board, they're elected, so now there's that political piece that are they making decisions for that reason? Whereas in theory, the finance committee would be that neutral,
Right.
objective, you know.
I mean, we saw some confusion last night.
You did, and I
Had
mean,
boards.
and I think that was a good example where the finance committee
Yeah.
got involved in something that would naturally fall under them, but I think they actually kind of pulled it together, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think some of the thing too is calling it a finance committee, people have it in their mind, like, why are they ruling, or why are they, shouldn't say ruling, why are they giving it their opinion on a planning board issue when,
Yeah, I think it cuts both ways, quite frankly, because then you also have water department, finance articles for which the finance committee really doesn't
Yeah.
Have any oversight.
have any oversight.
Yeah. I
But
think,
they are, and day to day.
I mean, I think some of it,
Suggestions, so.
I think some of it doesn't happen enough. I mean, you may have a zoning bylaw discussion, and we're asking for the planning board or their, how they voted on it, but that article affects multiple other boards that may not see it the same way. Like, why are we not asking their opinion, or at least getting a ruling on their opinion? I mean, one of the examples of last night was that one with the, with Zone 3. I mean, I understand the Water Commission ended up coming up and speaking about it, but without him coming up and speaking about it, no one would have known really where they stood on it, in town meeting wise.
Yeah, so I mean, I missed a few, and I think Bill does tend to ask the committee that's responsible, how did you guys vote? But it's not represented on the warrant, right? It's
Yeah.
not shown on the warrant, who voted what.
although that
Haven't
chart,
said is that water sewer is not responsible for that
Yeah,
article.
so he's not
right?
gonna ask them
Then-
every time.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not required to ask them, you're not
Yeah.
required just to.
I just think you're not, for our purposes of town meeting, the way we work things right now, I just don't see where it's benefiting anybody to come up, and if you're looking for as much information as you want to try to vote on some of these things, why are we not getting as much input as, we have all these committees, we have all these, subcommittees and appointed and elected things that are making decisions and recommendations on something. Let them do their job. Let them do what they're supposed to do. So if Zone 3, I'm just using that as an example, is getting affected, and Water Sewer Commission is hearing information on it, why are we not getting, as voters, why are we not getting that information before we make a decision on how we're gonna vote? I mean, for instance, the cemetery one, I mean, I know how, how we didn't have any information on it, no whatsoever. We had to take a vote on it. Doesn't matter which way the vote when. It's just that we're not getting information on it, and no one's making, any recommendations to us, either in writing or while we're there. I mean, it'd be nice to get some input and maybe a presentation from some of these boards that we're either appointing or electing to help us out here.
Yeah, so when we get, one of the things we'll need to consider is, you'll notice, remember in some of the other charters that we've read, they were very specific in timelines of when things need to be prepared and presented and all. So that's one thing we should consider when we get to that point.
I
yeah,
agree.
especially the finance and the budget process.
But what's interesting is we do have a timeline, but we sort of skirt it, right? Like we have to have a warrant published. So like, again, this language has to be, I think, a little more clear, because right now, it does say the warrant with the recommendations has to be published 7 days beforehand. but we saw how well that worked out, right? That it changed, what you had in front of you was not, and that, so it's not, I guess, specific enough, or I don't know what how you change that language to make it so that it's,
Yeah.
Is that in the charter?
might be in the bylaws.
Those
Yeah,
are the
that's right.
bylaws, yeah.
I think
It's
it
just,
is.
if 135 people last night, or 137 people last night, watched every single meeting across all these committee and boards, and had all this information, well, then, that's great. It'd be, well, I'm just saying, it would be very great to have someone who could walk in and say, well, I'm very well informed, because I know under the Water Sewer Commission that they came in and spoke, and I know the planning board had this information in front of them, and I know so-and-so had, that's just not happening.
I don't think it's possible.
No, that's what I'm saying, it's just not happening. So now we have a vote going on that's, we're not getting information from, you know what I mean? Or not enough information. And we're relying on either somebody to say, what's the recommendation? Or if happened to be somebody standing up there that says, well, I can let you know that this, and this happened.
Yeah, I think town meetings cut both ways. I think in some cases, people put a lot of faith in the boards. And when FinCom is recommending that an article be passed to move money from here to there, you just say, well, they know 99% more than I do.
Yeah.
1,000% more than I do, so I'm gonna, and I trust them, But by the same token, I think it can go the opposite way sometimes, because they don't necessarily know a lot about the water and sewer department and why they're allocating more money to this project on East Main Street.
I agree.
And, they ask some questions, but at the end of the day, they don't really have any say in what happens in the water department, so, but it still gets their stamp of kind of approval. So it kind of cuts both ways. Sometimes you can rely on, you should rely on what they say, and other times it's not quite, it's a mixed message, I think.
And I think one of that, perfect example of that, of you talking about the water sewer, was that the transfer of money there last night. I think we're asking FinCom, underneath it, the FinCom to recommend, why are we not getting the input from water sewer to let us know why this is happening, what's going on, why they're recommending it? I know it was something simple, it was something trivial, it was, just part of what had to be done, but it's just the point. Why is FinCom recommending that when we have a subcommittee, well, we have a committee or, that's elected to do those things,
So,
Anything else anybody feels like they are gonna need, want to investigate, get more information, talk to anybody? Okay. All right. Our next meeting is November 4th. I am not going to be here. I do not think we're going to have remote participation voted on before then. So I had broken off the time to call in from my conference and just told them, yeah, I'm available, so I now am at a cocktail party.
Now you're free.
Now I am at a cocktail party, so I'll not be here. I will put the agenda for both the 4th and the 7th together at the same time, because it's within a couple of days of one another, and I will send them out. Are you available on November 4th? Please say yes. Okay. So Kevin will be running the next meeting. I'll send out the agenda like we discussed. I will send out the remote participation policy that has been approved, so that you can read it in advance of our vote on it in the next meeting. The next town's charter doesn't exist. So apparently Foxborough does not have a charter, they only have bylaws.
What was the one that we
have Bridgewater.
So you have Bridgewater, that was the one that we gave out last week, so we were going to hand out Foxborough this week, just so we didn't inundate you, but there is no Foxborough charter. So, but they are one of the ones who are coming to visit with us. Their open town meeting? Okay.
So do they not need to have one if they put everything in the bylaws?
Yeah, so like North Attleboro, for example, did not have one prior to the Charter Commission. It was all bylaws.
Okay. Interesting.
And then it
Yep.
defers to state.
Yeah, and then, what was the other town? Was it Weston that had the special acts that wasn't a charter, but was the, what did she call it? The difference without a distinction? Was that the phrase she used? Lawyer term?
Guess as good as mine.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to have one.
Okay.
So there isn't one, so you only have the one to read for the, unless we've got a third.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up and see.
They were
Read
hoping-
it for the next meeting?
No, so they were, so for the MMA Lauren Goldberg discussion, the MMA was going to try and get a representative from a town for each type of government.
Oh, I see.
And we only have 2 right now. What's the one that we're missing?
RTM.
Okay. So if Sandy hears back from them and they have an RTM representative and it is not for a town whose charter we have not yet read, we'll get that charter and get that out to you. So you can ask any questions in that meeting on the 7th, but we won't discuss it.
Okay.
All right. November 4th, November 7th, next meetings. Charter action items, we got a whole bunch.
Yeah, so Denise is gonna check with Lucia on town meetings and ballots. David's gonna look into town managers for RTM to find out what the participation level is.
Just make sure that says David Brown.
You're not here next week, though.
Kevin's gonna look into IT, right, into cost of IT. Do you want me to reach out to Keith then, or are you gonna reach out to Keith to tell him what you voluntold him? Look into DPW towns. You can tell me later if we want.
That's fine. I don't mind
Okay.
just I'll send an email to him and copy you and just say, we thought you'd be the best suited for this task, and you'll get in contact with him for further.
And then Jeannie's gonna look into FinCom, right, appointments?
I did think of it, speaking of FinCom, though, I thought that concept of the joint appointment.
And I'll get out the remote participation policy. The remote participation policy.
What's that?
The remote participation policy.
Suggestions,
yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Way the.
No, I'll probably email it.
Ways
Yeah.
appointed. Yeah.
Anything else? Do we hit everything? Anything else anybody'd like to discuss? I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? We are adjourned.
Who was the first? Kevin?
Kevin.
Okay.